Tashtelek and good afternoon, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, and my dear colleagues. I am Thuntup Wangmo, a research fellow at the Tibet Policy Institute. It is my great honor to host today's panel discussion, convened in celebration of the 90th birth anniversary year of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, and dedicated to highlighting his lifelong commitment to environmental conservation. On behalf of the Tibet Policy Institute and the Gudwe Organizing Committee of the Central Tibetan Administration, it is my honor to welcome you to today's panel discussion, The Planet, People, and Compassion, Advancing Environmental Conservation Through Shared Global Responsibility. This year is especially meaningful as we commemorate the 90th birth anniversary of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, which our community has marked as the Year of Compassion. In this spirit, today's program reflects His Holiness' lifelong commitment to environmental conservation, a commitment grounded in compassion, interdependence, and a deep sense of responsibility towards all forms of life. For this panel, we have purposefully invited practitioners who work at the grassroots level and bring first-hand experience from the field. Their first-hand experience brings depth and authenticity, ensuring that today's discussions remain rooted in practical realities, informed by truth, and deeply connected to the communities we aim to serve. At this time, I kindly invite our panelists to offer khatak, traditional Tibetan ceremonial scarf, to the portrait of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. Thank you. We will now move to the next segment of our program. It is my honor to invite our keynote speaker, Mr. Karma Chuing, Director of the Tibet Policy Institute and Secretary of the Department of Information and International Relations, Central Tibetan Administration, to deliver keynote address.
Good afternoon to all. As we all know that we are celebrating His Holiness' 90th birthday starting last July, to be precise, July 6, and we are celebrating throughout the year as the Year of Compassion into the 2026 July 6, which is going to be the 91st birthday of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So the Central Tibetan Administration and the Tibetan community all over the world are celebrating this year-long birthday of His Holiness by celebrating his life and legacy and his timeless advices and messages of compassion, universal responsibility, and the oneness of humanity. Respected Mr. Murumuthu Yoganathan ji, Mr. Mohan Chandra Khandapal ji, Dr. Rajan Kotru ji, Dr. Lobsang Yangcho, Mr. Temba Genzin Zamla, the translators, moderators, and members in the audience. It is my privilege to deliver this keynote address at this important gathering organized by the Tibet Policy Institute in collaboration with the Gudwe Organizing Committee of the Central Tibetan Administration. As outlined In our program today, this panel discussion is dedicated to celebrating the 90th birth year of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama and his lifelong commitment to environmental conservation. Our theme, Planet, People and Compassion, reminds us that environmental conservation is not merely a scientific or technical challenge, it is fundamentally an ethical responsibility. As emphasized in our conference concept note, addressing climate change and ecological degradation requires not only policy reform and technological innovation, but also moral clarity, grassroots engagement, and a deep sense of compassion towards all living beings. Today, I wish to draw your attention to the Tibetan Plateau, often called the Third Pole. Tibet contains the largest reserve of fresh water outside the Arctic and Antarctic. It is the source of 10 major Asian river systems that sustain nearly 20% of the world's population. These rivers nourish civilizations across East, South, and Southeast Asia. The ecological stability of Tibet is therefore directly linked to water security, food systems, biodiversity, and climate regulation across the continent. Yet this fragile ecosystem stands at a critical tipping point. The plateau is warming at nearly twice the global average rate, leading to accelerated glacier melt and changing river flows. Climate change alone presents a profound threat, but it is compounded by large-scale mining, dam construction, deforestation, and unchecked infrastructure expansion. The cumulative impact of these activities risks destabilizing not only Tibet's environment, but the broader Asian ecological system. Traditionally, Tibet was preserved through a deeply rooted Buddhist values of interdependence and nonviolence. Mountains were revered as sacred, rivers flowed freely, and wildlife roamed without fences. Environmental stewardship was not enforced by law. It was guided by conscience, and the Tibetan worldview understood that harming nature ultimately harms oneself. However, today, Tibetans face a painful reality of witnessing environmental destruction without meaningful participation and consent. Extractive industries targeting lithium, copper, and gold have intensified, leaving behind deforestation, toxic waste discharge, and irreversible land degradation. In high-altitude ecosystems such as Tibet, recovery is painfully slow. Damage that occurs within few years may take decades or even centuries to heal. This crisis makes His Holiness the Dalai Lama's message more urgent than ever. As noted in our background document, His Holiness teaches the environmental protection is both a moral and practical responsibility. He reminds us that human beings are inseparable from nature and that environment destruction ultimately results in human suffering. In his words, our ancestors viewed the earth as rich and bountiful, which it is. It is essential that we re-examine ethically what we have inherited, what we are responsible for, and what we will pass on to coming generations. Unquote. This statement captures the essence of today's conference. Compassion must guide policy, ethics must inform development, progress cannot be measured solely by economic output, but by ecological sustainability and human well-being. Our panel session today reflects this holistic vision. We will hear inspiring grassroots stories of tree plantation, ecological restoration, community-led water conservation, the protection of sacred landscapes, and contemporary Tibetan environmental advocacy. These examples demonstrate that environmental conservation is not an abstract ideal. It is a lived practice rooted in courage, resilience, and hope. As our concept note emphasizes, the objective of this conference is to bridge ethical leadership, traditional ecological knowledge, and contemporary environmental action. By doing so, we reaffirm that environmental stewardship is a shared global responsibility. Protecting Tibet's environment is not only about preserving a unique land and culture. It is about safeguarding Asia's water security, stabilizing global climate system, and ensuring ecological well-being of future generations. The consequences of inaction will not respect political borders. In celebrating the 90th birth year of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, we are reminded that compassion is not passive sympathy, it is an active responsibility. It is the courage to speak truth about environmental injustice. It is the commitment to plant trees whose shade we may never sit under. It is willingness to protect waters that sustain millions we may never meet. So let this conference serve not only as a platform for dialogue, but as a call to action. May we leave this hall with renewed determination to align science with ethics, development with sustainability, and policy with compassion. If Tibet remains stable and ecologically secure, Asia remains stable. If we protect water tower of Asia, we protect the future of nearly 1/5 of the humanity. Let us therefore commit individually and collectively to advancing environmental conservation through shared global responsibility, guided by compassion of our planet, for our people, and for generations yet to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kamachwingla, for the keynote address. With this, we conclude the opening session. We will now begin session 1. I'm pleased to invite Ms. Techen Palmu, Research Fellow at the Tibet Policy Institute, who will serve as the moderator for the first session and guide the first panel discussion.
I invite Mr. Temba Gangchen Zamla, a senior Tibetan environmental expert, climate change observer with an extensive experience in environmental research, policy, and international advocacy related to Tibet's environment. He has represented Tibet at numerous regional and global climate and environmental forums, highlighting the ecological importance of the Tibetan plateau. Mr. Temba has joined the Environment and Development Desk under the Department of Information and National Relations in 2011, and later served as its head. Following its merger with the Tibet Policy Institute, he continued as the head of Environment and Development Desk and a senior research fellow, and currently serves as the deputy director of the Tibet Policy Institute. His research focuses on socio-environmental impact of climate change on the Tibetan plateau, making his work highly relevant to the global climate resilience, environmental justice, and sustainable development. His presentation title is His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama Lifelong Commitments to Environmental Conservation. With this, I invite Temba to take the stage.
A very good afternoon to you all. Thank you very much, Dechenla, the chair of the session. I'm really, really privileged and honored to be here on this dais with the people who make grassroots contribution, people who are not just giving speeches, but people who make real commitments to community service through environmental conservation, through sustainable activism. So this is a special privilege for me. And also I'm very, very honored to be here, one of the speakers to speak on His Holiness the Dalai Lama's environment conservation commitment. And this is something that has been very special for me, because we have been working on this since 2018 with Environment Desk. Now, for the next 20 minutes, I'll try to cover a few aspects. Now, many of you know that His Holiness has a very strong commitment towards environmental conservation, but we may not have never had enough time or the occasion to think what could have led His Holiness towards environmental conservation. Where did His Holiness gain those passion for environment conservation? So what I'll try to do is I'll try to bring out 5 specific aspects. Number 1, commitment. A strong commitment for environment conservation and ecological well-being is, for any work, we require a commitment. For any task that we want to move forward, we need firm commitment. And His Holiness has had one of those commitments, particularly environment. His Holiness has made environment as part of one of his previously 3 life commitments in life, and later with one more addition as part of 4 commitment in life. Then there's the proposal. For any commitment, we need a strong proposal. We need strong path-breaking ideas. So His Holiness had those. And in this presentation, I'll try to highlight a few such proposals that has brought innovative ideas. And then for any commitment or for any proposal, it requires public recognition. It requires recognition from scholars, public, and the government. And His Holiness has received numerous recognition, and I will highlight a few of those. Now, to do any work, it requires consistent efforts. Many of us, we try to do something here or there, but we end up doing it 1 year, 2 years, but never beyond that. But for His Holiness, there has to be consistent effort ever since his childhood. So there was, I will try to highlight some of those in this presentation. Then, now, a lot of us try to do a lot of things, but sometimes we can never have the impact that we really wish to. But His Holiness had those impacts. The impacts that other speakers here, like Mohanji, like Marimutuji, like Rajanji, like Dr. Lapsayon, whose contribution has made impact in their region, in their locality, in their community. Similarly, His Holiness' passion for environment conservation had strong impact. Now, commitment. Now, His Holiness had initially 3 lifelong commitments. Number 1, as a human being, the promotion of human values. Number 2, as a Buddhist monk, the promotion of religious harmony. And number 3, as a Tibetan and as the Dalai Lama, preservation of Tibetan culture and the protection of Tibet's natural environment. In 2011, His Holiness added the revival of ancient Indian knowledge. Now, His Holiness has made environment protection as part of one of his lifelong commitment. Now, we all can have commitments, but to understand the person's commitment is really, really firm, really, really consistent, then you need to understand certain things. Now, this is a WikiLeaks published in 2010. This is a cable sent by then U.S. ambassador in India back to Washington. And in this is what His Holiness says. His Holiness said that political solution for Tibet can wait for another 5 to 10 years, but not environmental degradation currently happening in Tibet. The statement clearly underlines his strong commitment towards environment conservation. Now, His Holiness has said that urgency for environment conservation in Tibet is so urgent, so important, that the political situation we can resolve this political situation in 5 to 10 years, but environment is urgent. That's what he said. This is clear indication that His Holiness has this very strong environmental commitment. Now, this is something that I have always wondered, because you and me, we read through environment books, we meet environment conservationists, we go to environment conferences. Some people get influenced by friends, some people by books, some people by big personalities. So I always wondered what could have influenced His Holiness. So as I was reading through different books written by His Holiness, one book that particularly caught my attention was the first ever biography of His Holiness, published in 1962 here in India, My Land and My People. And I'm sure most of you must have read it, but each one have different interests, different focus. So my focus was environment aspect. So what I found was very interesting. So before that, I go into it. Now, another aspect that we must understand is that His Holiness was born on 5th day of 5th month, 1935. So His Holiness was basically born in summer. Summer is the best time in Tibet. I would say that there are no other places in the world that is more beautiful than Tibet when it comes to summers. And His Holiness was born in 5th day of 5th month in 1935. So best time of the year in Tibet. Now in the book, this is what His Holiness says. His Holiness was only 4 years old. Only 4 years old. And he took almost 3-month journey from Taktse in Amdo to Lhasa. It was about 2 months, 20 days or something. And during those trips, Tibet is a big country. So His Holiness had the opportunity to see a lot of things: mountains, lakes, forests, animals. And this is what he writes. I remember very little detail apart from a great sense of wonder at everything I saw, because His Holiness was only 4 years old, and there was so much excitement, so much to see, so much fantasy in his eyes. The vast herds of drong, which is wild yaks, grazing across the plains. The smaller group of chang, and occasionally a herd of antelopes and blue sheep. Small deer which were so light and so fast they might have been ghosts. I also loved the huge flocks of hooting geese we saw from time to time. Now, His Holiness saw a lot of things. He was only 4 years old, but he remembers that. That particular aspect had a strong influence on His Holiness. That's what I feel. The word that he used in the book, how he recalls the memory. So this is one aspect that might have influenced His Holiness. Now, there could also be other influences. One aspect that I might think is that His Holiness' residence in Nobulinka Summer Palace. Now, Nobulinka Summer Palace is no ordinary palace. Nobulinka Summer Palace has some of the best flowers, best plants. It has vast park. So His Holiness, because His Holiness, he does not have the the freedom to move around in the town, or in the city, or in the village. But his environment was around the Nobulinka Summer Palace. And that palace had a diverse group of different flowers and plants. And I'm sure as growing up in Nobulinka Summer Palace must have also influenced His Holiness' passion for environment. And most importantly, His Holiness could also have been influenced by Tibetan cultural aspect. Tibetan people's belief in the sacredness of mountains and lakes. That might also have been one of the factors that might have influenced His Holiness. Now, we should also understand people can have commitments, but if there's no action, it's just a commitment. Now, His Holiness' consistent commitment can be understood from what His Holiness did since his childhood. Now, His Holiness ordered forest protection and banned hunting during independent Tibet. His Holiness also ended poultry farming and supported vegetarian movement within exiled Tibet community, because we had a large poultry farming during the initial years here in India. And His Holiness also supported vegetarian movement. His Holiness also called for tree plantation and wildlife protection in Tibet. His Holiness was the first to highlight ecological importance of the Tibet Plateau on the global stage. And His Holiness also urged for global cooperation on climate change at numerous occasions, which, to my understanding, makes His Holiness one of the most consistent, high-profile individual environmentalists. Now, then coming to the proposals. Every commitment requires great proposals. Great proposals need to be great ideas. His Holiness had many of those great ideas. Now, it was in 1987 at the US Congressional Human Rights Caucus where His Holiness put forth this famous 5-point peace plan. Now, in the 5-point peace plan, this is what His Holiness has proposed. First, I would like to read out the 5-point peace plan. Transformation of whole of Tibet into a zone of peace. The abandonment of China's population transfer policy, which threatens the very existence of the Tibetans as people. Respect for the Tibetan people's fundamental human rights and democratic freedom. Restoration and protection of Tibet's natural environment, and the abandonment of China's use of Tibet for the production of nuclear weapons and dumping of nuclear waste. Number 5, commencement of earnest negotiation on the future status of Tibet and the relation between Tibet and the Chinese people. Now, this was issued in 21st September 1987 at the US Congressional Human Rights Caucus. Now, we need to focus on the 4th point in the peace plan, which states that serious efforts must be made to restore the natural environment in Tibet, and that Tibet should not be used for production of nuclear weapons and the dumping of nuclear waste. Now, statement also urged that with what little is left in Tibet must be protected, and efforts must be made to restore environment to its balanced state. The proposal, though not accepted by the Chinese government, it definitely made the Chinese government to stop in nuclear waste dumping in Tibet and also reduce environmental destruction in Tibet. Now, His Holiness also received many recognition for his great proposals. But I will highlight one, and that is Nobel Peace Prize. His Holiness' strong and sincere commitment towards environmental conservation, his great ideas and wonderful proposals for environmental conservation and protection has been recognized numerous times by governments, institutions, people across the world. One such recognition is the awarding of Nobel Peace Prize. Now here, His Holiness was the first Nobel laureate to be recognized for environmental conservation efforts, something that we missed in between, because His Holiness was more of a peace laureate. But in the text, there's aspect of environmental conservation. Now, to read that out to you, this is what the Norwegian committee says. The Dalai Lama has developed his philosophy of peace from a great reverence for all things living and upon the concept of universal responsibility, embracing all mankind as well as nature. In the opinion of the committee, the Dalai Lama has come forward with constructive and forward-looking proposals for the resolution of international conflicts, human rights issues, and global environmental problems. Now let's get to the efforts. There are numerous efforts, but the strong commitment also leads to untiring efforts wherever, whenever, and however possible. His Holiness has made those efforts. At almost every teaching His Holiness gives on an international stage, at our university, to our public, His Holiness always speaks about the importance of environmental conservation, need for oneness of humanity. Now, His Holiness was the first Tibetan to attend a global climate summit. That was in 1992 during the Rio Earth Summit. And during the summit, this is what His Holiness said. Each of us must learn to work not for his or herself, family or nation, but for the benefit of all mankind. His Holiness was among the first individuals calling for global cooperation on climate change. Now, His Holiness also sent a video message to the Paris Climate Summit in 2015, in which His Holiness said, this is one of the famous saying that has been repeatedly quoted. Our world is our only home. If this blue planet, due to global warming or some other sort of environmental problem, cannot sustain itself, then there is no other planet where we can move or shift. So, this is our only home. Therefore, we have to take serious concern about the protection of environment and also serious concern about global warming. Now, I had the privilege and honor of being there during those recording of that particular video message His Holiness sent. So it was a few days ahead of the Paris Climate Summit. Now then in 2018, His Holiness sent a written message to the UN Climate Summit delegation. In the message, this is what His Holiness said. I extend my greetings and prayers to my dear brothers and sisters, delegates to the 24th Conference of Parties, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The message further added, I would sincerely like to thank all of you who have selflessly and tirelessly put efforts into creating a better environment for the world so that future generations will be able to live a healthy, happy life. Now again, I also had the other privilege of carrying that written message. We had 50 copies of His Holiness' written message, carried to UN Climate Summit, and delivered to the UN delegates. These are not ordinary people. The person you see there is the Secretary of UNFCCC, the organizing team of the UN Climate Summit. So they were very, very happy to receive message. And one particular incident, I went to an African nation delegation. I delivered the message to them. The person was so happy that he just started calling people around him, saying that, look, Dalai Lama has sent a message to him. It was not to him, but it was to all the delegation. But that's what he thought. Now, what are the impacts? This, I think, impacts, ultimately it comes to impacts. We all make efforts, we all have commitments, but impacts are important. Like Mohanji, like Marimutuji, like Rajanji, like Lopsayonso, people whose work has impacts on the ground. Now, His Holiness' commitments has strong impact. Success of any commitment and effort can be measured by its impact on the ground. And His Holiness had massive, or to be more precise, an unimaginable impact on the ground, particularly in Tibet 14 years ago. I'm just citing only one example here. In 2006, during the Kala Chakra Puja in South India, His Holiness asked Tibetans in Tibet to stop wearing animal skin decorated clothes, a tradition that was immensely popular across Tibet. The response was of unimaginable scale. Tibetans across the plateau suddenly came together to end this very popular tradition of wearing animal skin decorated clothes. They pledged never to use it again and burned all the animal skin they had. His Holiness brought a sudden end to a very popular dressing tradition. Now, those of you who are from Tibet, particularly from Eastern Tibet, know how difficult it would be. If it is not His Holiness, no one could have ended this tradition. Every home, including myself, my home, even if we have some amount of money, we try to buy a tiger skin or a leopard skin to decorate our clothes, because that was the best, most precious part of our tradition, part of our dressing tradition. So it was precious. There were scholars who tried to stop it. No one was successful. Chinese government also tried to do something here and there, but they were not successful. But His Holiness, one message from His Holiness, one firm message from His Holiness, put 100 years of tradition of wearing this particular tradition of dress to an end, which helped in ending animal skin trafficking that was happening in Tibet. To come to my conclusion, one of the latest books on His Holiness, this is what His Holiness said. If Lord Buddha were to return to this world, he would be green. But to my view, because I have not seen Lord Buddha, because it was 2,000 years ago, but to my view, His Holiness is undoubtedly one of those green Buddhas for sure. Now, in 2020, I wrote an article saying that His Holiness is an environmentalist. Because a lot of people might think that environmentalist, meaning you have to be an environmental scholar, you have to be on activism. But someone who has passion for environmental conservation, someone who always makes effort wherever he can. Because when His Holiness teaches, it's to thousands and thousands of people. In such a crowd, when His Holiness says environmental conservation is important, it definitely has influence, it definitely has impacts. That's how many of us were also impacted. Now, finally, I want to end with one quote from His Holiness' book that we, Tibet Policy Institute, published. This blue planet is our only home, and Tibet is roof. The Tibet plateau is needed to be protected, not just for Tibetans, but for the health and sustainability of the entire world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tenpa Gangchen Zamla, for your insightful presentation and for reminding us of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama lifelong commitment to environmental conservation and ethical responsibility. Now, I would like to invite our second speaker, Mr. Marimuthu Yogananthan, widely known as the Tree Man of India, one of the country's most inspiring grassroots environmental conservationists. Mr. Yogananthan has dedicated nearly 4 decades of his life to tree plantation, climate action, and environmental education. Beginning his journey as a Tamil Nadu State Transport Corporation bus conductor, he transformed personal commitment into a nationwide movement for sustainability. With over 1 lakh trees planted and remarkable 90% of survival rate, Mr. Yogananthan emphasizes not just planting trees, but nurturing and protecting them. Through initiatives like Uri Vara Uru Varam, means literally translated as 1 tree for 1 man, he has inspired millions of students and teachers to take personal responsibility for the environment. Honored with the National Youth Award and Eco Warrior Award, his life work powerfully reflects His Holiness' message that when one individual takes responsibility, meaningful and lasting environmental change can become possible. The title of his presentation is The Importance of Tree Plantation and Its Contribution to Human Well-being, a grassroots story of environmental conservation work. Mr. Yogananthan's presentation will be translated by Mrs. Kamia Mohan, an educator, environmental advocate for over 26 years of experience in human safety and ecological responsibility. I also sincerely would like request Ms. Kamia to finish within the time period due to the shortage of time. Thank you. You can begin the...
எல்லோருக்கும் வணக்கம். நான் இங்கே இதான் ஃபஸ்ட் டைம் வந்திருக்கேன். நேற்று போய் தலாய் லாமா சார்ட்ட ஆசீர்வாதம் வாங்கிட்டு வந்தேன். இந்த தர்மசாலாவிற்கு பேசுவதை என் வாழ்நாளில் மிக முக்கியமான ஒரு தருணமாக, புண்ணியமாக நான் நினைக்கிறேன்.
Greetings to everybody. I'm very honored to be here. This is my first trip to Dharamshala. I had the greatest honor of meeting His Holiness yesterday and seeking his blessings. Being in this place, meeting His Holiness and receiving his blessings, and being in front of all of you, I would consider it to be my life's biggest achievement so far.
கூட பிறந்தவங்க ஒரு 4 சகோதரிகள், ஒரு சகோதரர். குழந்தையிலே தஞ்சாவூர்லேருந்து நீலகிரியில் ஒரு ஹில் ஸ்டேஷனில் ஒரு டீ எஸ்டேட்டில் கூலி வேலைக்காக என்னை குழந்தைய தூக்கிட்டு வராங்க. அங்கே ஒரு 5வது வகுப்பு படிக்கிறேன். அதற்கு பிறகு ராசிபுரத்துக்கு வறுமையின் காரணமாக ராசிபுரம், சேலம் டிஸ்ட்ரிக்ட் ராசிபுரத்தில் போய் படிக்கிறேன்.
Honored guests and fellow seekers of wisdom, we gather today to mark a profound milestone, the 86th anniversary of the enthronement of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. This occasion is not merely a celebration of longevity, but a testament to a lifetime of unwavering empirical commitment to compassion, secular ethics, and the elevation of human consciousness. We are profoundly indebted to His Holiness, whose presence provides the intellectual and spiritual scaffolding for this platform. It is under the aegis of his enduring legacy that we are empowered to share our collective journeys and articulate our visions for the future. As we begin, I invite you to engage with the facts of our progress and the rigorous pursuit of our shared dreams. Thank you for your presence. Now I begin. I was born in Rasipuram, a small village in Salem, in Tamil Nadu. I used to visit the Nilagiri Hills in Tamil Nadu, which was a small hill station, during my summer vacations to escape the horrid heat of my birthplace.
ராசிபுரத்துலேருந்து குவார்ட்டர்லி லீவ், ஆஃப் ஏர்லி ஆனுவல் லீவுக்கு நான் நீலகிரிக்கு வருவேன் அம்மா வீட்டுக்கு. அங்கே வரும்போது பார்த்தா ராசிபுரம் வெரி ஹாட், நீலகிரி இஸ் வெரி கோல்டு, நேச்சர் ஏசி. இப்போ இல்லீகலாக மரம்லாம் வெட்டி கடத்திட்டு போகிறாங்க. நீலகிரியில் என்ன ப்ராப்ளம்னா, பெரிய மரங்களை வெட்டி கிளைகள் எல்லாம் டீ ஃபேக்ட்ரிக்கு போயிடும், தேயிலையை வறுத்தெடுக்கிறதுக்கு. தண்டு பகுதியெல்லாம் பலகைக்காக மேட்டுப்பாளையத்துக்கு கடத்திட்டு வருவாங்க. அந்த நேரத்தில் என்னோடய கோல் என்னென்னா, நான் கலெக்டருக்கு லெட்டர் எழுதுகிறேன், டிஎஃப்ஓக்கு லெட்டர் எழுதுகிறேன், கன்சூட்டருக்கு எழுதுகிறேன், பட் நோ ரெஸ்பான்ஸ்.
When I was 16, roughly, I was lying in a hospital bed. my body broken by those who see trees as only as timber and as profit. My mother sat beside me, her eyes filled with the reality of fear. She asked me, तुम्हें क्या पड़ी है? तुम ही क्यों कर रहे हो ये सब? और कोई नहीं मिला क्या? And she said, अब की बार यहाँ मत आना मुझे मिलने. चले जाओ वापस रासीपुरम. यहाँ आओगे तो मर जाओगे. I didn't have much of an answer then, but I could not wait and just look on at the trees and the timber being cut and taken away by the tree factories illegally to roast the tea leaves.
அடுத்து வந்து மரம் வெட்டுற போது அந்த லாரிக்கு முன்னாடி போய் படுக்கிறேன். அது மக்களுக்கு எல்லாத்துக்கும் தெரிய வைக்கிறேன். அதற்கு பிறகு ஒரு 15 நாள் பெட் ரெஸ்ட்டு, முதுகு ஃபுல்லாக ஆயில் போட்டு எங்கள் அம்மா வந்து நீலகிரிக்கே வர வேண்டாம், யாராருக்கும் உள்ள பிரச்சனை உனக்கு என்ன, நீ ஏங்க தடுக்கிற, யாரோ மரம் வெட்டிட்டு போகிறாங்க, எங்கேயோ போகிறாங்க, உனக்கு என்னன்னு கேட்டு என்னை மீண்டும் நீலகிரியில் விட்டு நீ போய் ஆகணுன்றாங்க. அந்த நேரத்தில் டிஎன்ஜிஎம் தமிழ்நாடு கிரீன் மூமெண்ட் பிரசிடெண்ட் டாக்டர் ஜீவா, செக்ரட்டரி ஜெயச்சந்திரன் 2 பேரும் என்னை பார்க்க வர்றாங்க. என்ன வேணாலும் உங்களுக்கு ஹெல்ப் பண்ணுறேன், நீ இந்த வேலையை தொடர்ந்து செய்யுன்னு சொல்கிறேன்.
During my vacation days, I was witness to the horrors of eco-violence. I was somewhere about 15-16 years of age. I didn't know much, but I knew whatever I was seeing was not the right thing to do. Not knowing the depth of the horrors, I jumped into the rescue. People thought that these broken bones of mine were lessons enough not to meddle in another man's affairs. But little did they know, in fact, little did I know, what had been set in motion. In my desperate need to set the wrongs of the right, I wrote letters to the then collector and the DFO mentioning the illegal cutting and felling and robbing of the trees and waited with bated breath. I realized that the letters to the DFO and the collector were in vain because they were written in the language of bureaucracy, not the language of the soul. I changed my tactics. So I went and laid down in front of the lorries and the trucks that were taking this timber away, thinking that would stop it. The people got down, picked me up, beat me up, bashed me up to a pulp, and threw me in the hospital bed. They thought they had finally broken this boy down. Little did they know that they broke the body a million miles, but they could never break this young man's spirit.
நம்ம ஏன் தொடர்ந்து போராடுறோம், ஏன் இப்படி அடி வாங்கணும், இதை கொஞ்சம் மாற்றி யோசிக்கிறேன். நான் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்டுக்கிட்ட போன்ட்டு இந்த மேட்டரை கொண்டு போனோம்னா அவங்கள வச்சு இதை நம்ம ஜெயிக்க முடியும்னு எனக்கு தோணுச்சு. அப்போ ஒரு சின்ன ஸ்லைட் ப்ரொஜெக்டர் வாங்கினேன். வைல்ட் லைஃப் ஃபோட்டோகிராஃபர்கிட்ட நான் ட்ரெக்கிங் போவேன் அடிக்கடி. அவர்களோடு என்னோடய தொடர்பை ஏற்படுத்தி நிறைய ஸ்லைட் வாங்கினேன். ஸ்லைட் ப்ரொஜெக்டரை தூக்கிட்டு ஒவ்வொரு நானும் ஒவ்வொரு ஸ்கூல் காலேஜாக போக ஆரம்பித்தேன். நிறைய வரவேற்பு இருந்தது. அந்த காலகட்டத்தில் தான் அறிவொளி இயக்கம்னு கவர்மெண்ட்டு நடத்துகிறாங்க, கையெழுத்து போடுறதுக்கெல்லாம். அவர்களுக்கு நான் அவங்களோட பேசி, அந்த கோஆர்டினேட்டர்கிட்ட பேசி, அவங்க தமிழ்நாடு கிரீன் மூமெண்ட்டை பேசி, மத்தியானம் லஞ்சு ஃப்ரீயாக அவங்களுக்கு கொடுத்து ஒரு 15 days ஒன்ஸ் ட்ரைனிங் தொடர்ந்து நடத்துகிறோம். அதில் என்வாமெண்ட் பார்ட்டை மட்டும் நான் எடுத்துகிட்டு முழுமையாக சொல்கிறேன். அதற்கு பிறகு அவர்கள் நீலகிரியில் எங்கே மரம் வெட்டினாலும் எங்களுக்கு தகவல் கொடுத்தாங்க. அதுக்கு பிறகு தான் தொடர்ந்து அதற்கு பிறகு மாஃபியாவில் மரம் வெட்டுறவங்களாம் சேர்ந்து ஒரு ப்ரொஃபஸர் தமிழ்ச்செல்வன், நானும் ஒரு ராம்சந்திரன், ஒரு டவுன் ஏரியா, அந்த இடத்துக்கு போகும்போது எங்களை அடிக்கிறதுக்காக ஒரு கூட்டமே வராங்க. ஒரு ஹோட்டலுக்குள்ளே ஓடுறோம், ஓடி போய் ஷட்டர் இழுத்து விட்டுட்டு போகிறோம். பெரிய ஜன்னல் இருக்குது. ஒரு 15-20 இயர்ஸாக அந்த சாப்பிட்ட இலையெல்லாம் அதில் தான் கொட்டுவாங்க. அதில் போய் 2 பேர் குதிக்கிறோம். பெரிய டீலாக கீழே போகிறோம். ஃபுல்லாக பாடி ஃபுல்லாக டேட்டி ஆகிடுச்சு. அங்கே தான் அந்த ஜெயச்சந்திரன் தமிழ்நாடு கிரீன் மூமெண்ட் செக்ரட்டரி எங்களை காரில் எஸ்கேப் பண்ணி கூப்பிட்டு போகிறாரு. அந்த நைட்டு போய் குளிக்க வச்சு எங்களுக்கு துணியெல்லாம் கொடுத்து அங்கே தங்க வைக்கிறார்.
With my unbroken spirit, I thought for a while, I thought for a long time, why am I doing this alone? Why not I strengthen myself and arm myself with more voices? It was time I went big, time to raise awareness. I then decided to spread the word. I bought a small, simple projector. I had a dear friend who was a wildlife photographer I collected as many images and pictures of environment and ecology and birds and plants and animals, and collected it and made it into a small presentation and took it from village to village and approached various schools there and played the projector and showed them all the slides. I showed them how the rain doesn't just fall, it is invited by the soil. I showed them how the hills act as a giant sponge catching the clouds. I showed them that the very breath we take is a gift from the native birds to the insects and the ancient varieties of trees that are holding our soil together. When you see the intricate dance of an insect pollinating a native flower on a big screen, you realize ecology is not a subject inside a classroom anymore. It is our very survival guide, the only guide perhaps. My journey continued. Armed with this tiny projector and loads of slides, I went school to school, village to village, all over Nilgiris to teach them the importance of soil, the magic of the green, the power of the seeds, the varieties of birds and animals native to different regions, how ecology works and how it matters to you and to me. I had one rule though. I will plant a few saplings and only then start my speech. If you didn't give me a space to plant a sapling, I'm not coming to your school. And so I made this my Mool Mantra. And I then armed myself with not just the slide projector, but also with saplings, because one may never know when I might find some space to start sowing them. With the support of one Mr. Jivanandam, the Green Movement president, I reached out to more people, and soon Nilgiris was declared a no encroachment zone. Seeing the response, many other schools started inviting me, and I refused the invite if they refused to plant trees. Street plays were conducted by me. I dabble in a little bit of poetry as well. I write plays too. I did a lot of street plays. I empowered people. I gave them as much information as I could. The public became aware and alert. One fated day, my friend and I crossed paths with the tree mafia yet again. We tried to stop it. We pulled all the antics we could. They tried to attack us and they chased us, and to stop us for good. We ran for our lives and found a very old compost pit, and we jumped into it and covered ourselves in dirt and soil. The very soil that covers the earth was the only thing that protected us and covered us from the tree mafia and kept us alive.
இந்த நேரத்தில் தான் தமிழ்நாடு ஸ்டேட் டிரான்ஸ்போர்ட்டில் வந்து கண்டக்டர் வேலைக்கு இன்டர்வியூ வருது. எனக்கு வேலை கிடைச்சிருது. ஒரு டாக்டர் எனக்கு ரெக்கமெண்ட் பண்ணுறாரு, எனக்கு வேலை கிடைச்சிருது. கண்டக்டர் வேலை ஆஃப் டே தான். இன்றைக்கி மத்தியானம் போனால் நைட் ஃபுல்லாக டியூட்டி இருக்கும், மறுநாள் மத்தியானம் முடிஞ்சிடும். அப்போ மறுநாள் மத்தியானத்துலேருந்து மறுநாள் மத்தியானம் வர ஃபுல்லி ஒன் டே டைமிங் இருக்கும். அப்போ காலையிலேயே ஒரு ஸ்கூலுக்கு போவேன், மத்தியானம் டியூட்டி முடிஞ்சால் மத்தியானத்துக்கு மேலே ஒரு ஸ்கூலுக்கு போவேன், காலேஜுக்கு போவேன். இந்த காலகட்டங்களில் ரோடெல்லாம் மரம் வெட்டுவாங்க. மரம் வெட்டுறது யாருன்னா அரசியல்வாதியாக இருப்பாங்க அல்லது பெரிய பணம் படைத்தவர்களாக இருப்பாங்க. நான் டியூட்டிக்கு போகிறப்ப நின்று பஸ் விட்டு இறங்கிடுவேன். இறங்கி மரம் வெட்டக்கூடாதுன்னு தடுப்பேன், ஃபைட் பண்ணுவேன், போலீஸ் கூப்பிடுவேன், பிஏஓ வில்லேஜ் அட்மினிஸ்ட்ரேட்டிவ் ஆஃபீஸர், ரெவென்யூ ஆஃபீஸர்லாம் கூப்பிடுவேன். கூப்பிட்டு தொடர்ந்து ப்ராப்ளம். உடனே அப்படி பிரச்சனை முடிஞ்சு மறுநாள் டிரான்ஸ்போர்ட் ஆஃபீஸுக்கு போவேன். மறுநாளே எனக்கு டிரான்ஸ்ஃபர் வேறு ஊருக்கு. அதிகமான டிரான்ஸ்ஃபர் வாங்கினது டிரான்ஸ்போர்ட்டில் நான் தான். பட் அதை வெரி ஹாப்பியாக நான் எடுத்துக்கிட்டேன். ஏன்னா எல்லா ஊர்லேயும் நான் டிரான்ஸ்ஃபர் ஆகி போன ஊரில் எல்லாம் ஸ்லைட் ஷோ பண்ண முடிஞ்சது, மரம் நட முடிஞ்சது, பெரிய பெரிய அவேர்னஸ் என்னால் பண்ண முடிஞ்சது. அடுத்தது வந்து இப்படி மரம் வெட்டி தடுக்கும் போது ஒரு நாள் போராட்டம் பண்ணுறேன். போலீஸ் வந்து பிடிக்குது. பிடிச்சிட்டு என்ன வாங்க பேசிக்கலாம், தாசில்தார்கிட்ட பேசிட்டு போடான்னு சொல்லி நேராக கோர்ட்டுக்கு கொண்டு போய் கோர்ட்லேருந்து ஜெயிலில் கொண்டு போய் போட்டாங்க. ஜெயிலில் வந்து டிஐஜி கோவிந்தராஜன் சொல்லி அவர் கூட நல்லா பழகி, ஜெயிலுக்குள்ளேயே தமிழில் சிறைச்சாலைன்னு சொல்லுவோம், அங்கே சிறைச்சோலைன்னு ஒரு நர்சரி பண்ணேன். ஒரு 5 ஏக்கர் கோகனட் ட்ரீஸ் நட்டேன். இன்றைக்கி 2700 பேர் சாப்பிட்டு மீதியே விற்பனை பண்ணிகிட்டு இருக்காங்க.
I had by now, from my teen years, planted close to 2 lakh saplings. Soon, I got a job as a bus conductor. Coming from a very humble family, getting this job was quite a task, was quite a big success for me. I could now earn money, do things that I wanted the way I wanted it. But I chose to spend more than 40% of my salary in buying the saplings and planting them by myself. I chose not to ask any help from anybody, because if I did, I would be indebted to them. I would be answerable to them, and I didn't want that. I wanted the freedom to do it my way. Armed with it, I went about planting happily. Roughly about 10 years passed, but all was not hunky-dory. Because this job required me to work about half a day, I had the rest of the day off till the next day morning. So I went about my way planting trees and probably coming a bit late to work and getting scolded for it. They knew what I was up to and they were not too happy with me as well. But then who could do anything about it? I was still a government employee. I kept planting trees and preventing cutting and drawing of the trees. And this did not go down pretty well for a few big names in society. They had me transferred. A new town, but an old me going about my same business yet again. I was mentioned in the regional magazines and the newspapers of Tamil Nadu, not as a man who planted trees, but as a man who was transferred 9 times in 23 months. And I'm so glad that I was transferred. I was not a rich man, and I spent 40% of my salary buying saplings and planting them. Where would I have money to visit different villages in different cities and different states? The job was done by the government. They kept transferring me. I went happily there and continued planting them. You keep transferring me, I'll keep planting more. And this went on. Now people could not control me and contain me, but giving a beautiful excuse of me creating public nuisance, they threw me in prison. Oh, I'm not one to keep quiet even there. I observed that the prison had almost 1,000 acres of land idling away. And there were 2,500 prisoners who were hard laborers. And there was one me, relentless, and I had saplings a lot. What did I choose to do? I created a concept called Sirai Chalayil Oru Sirai Cholai, meaning, loosely translated, Zindan mein ek Gulistan. Creating a small nursery and a haven of green inside the prison walls. I used the prisoners as labor and help. I taught them all that I knew, and I did not deter. I saw that the prison compound had acres of unattended land, and I started this as a movement, a nursery of sorts. I taught the prisoners to plant and tend to the saplings, and I ensured that more than 5 acres of coconut trees were planted, and various native trees in acres and acres of prison land, which are still giving revenue to more than 2,500 prisoners. Prison walls could not stop my crusade. In fact, as an aside, I would like to mention something that he did not tell you now, but he had told me and he has mentioned it many a times. He says, you throw me anywhere, it doesn't matter if it's a prison here, or if it's India, or you throw me on this planet anywhere, or you send me to Mars. All I need to do is arm myself with a sapling and a little bucket of water, and I'm good to go. அடுத்தது
2008 ஈகோ வாரியர் அவார்டு பிரசிடெண்ட் அவார்டு கொடுக்குறாங்க எனக்கு. பட் இவ்வளோ பெரிய அவார்டுன்னு எனக்கு தெரியாது. நான் லீவில் போஸ்டல் அனுப்பிச்சிருங்கன்னு சொன்னேன். அப்புறம் ராஷ்டிரபதி பவன்லேருந்து கூப்பிட்டு வந்து வாங்கி ஆகணும், கண்டிப்பாக வரணும்னு சொல்லி கலெக்டருக்கு சொல்லி டிஸ்ட்ரிக்ட் கலெக்டர்கிட்ட எனக்கு வந்து சொல்லி போகிறேன். அப்போல்லாம் வந்து எனக்கு 2 காக்கி பேண்ட்டு 2 காக்கி ஷர்ட்டு ஒரு டிஷர்ட்டு தான் என்னுடைய ஓல்டு ட்ரெஸ். அதில் காக்கி சட்டை டியூட்டி முடிஞ்சு கழட்டிட்டு டிஷர்ட் போட்டு ஃபீல்டு ஒர்க் போவேன். இதுதான் என்னோடய லைஃப் ஸ்டைலாக இருந்தது. அங்கே லஞ்சம் வாங்காத நிருபர்கள் இருந்தாங்க. அவங்க எல்லாம் சேர்ந்து எனக்கு 3 ஷர்ட்டு 3 பேண்டெல்லாம் வாங்கிட்டு வந்தாங்க. பிக் பாஸ்னு ஒரு டெய்லர், அவர் 3 ஷர்ட்டு 2 பேண்ட்டு ஒரு கோட் சூட் வாங்கிட்டு வராரு. நான் சும்மா பைத்துணியில் போகிறேன் ஃப்ளைட்டில் ஏறுறதுக்கு. பெட்டியில் ஒரு 100-200 பேர் பேப்பரில் நியூஸ் பார்த்து வராங்க, எல்லாம் கவரில் காசு வச்சு கொடுக்குறாங்க. அப்புறம் போய் ஒரு பெட்டி வாங்கிட்டு ஃபஸ்ட் டைம் ஃப்ளைட்டில் போகிறேன். எனக்கு ஃப்ளைட்டை தூரத்தில் பார்த்தது தான் பயம். போய் டெல்லியில் இறங்கினேன். அங்கே வந்து ஒரு ஃபோட்டோ வச்சுட்டு இருந்தாங்க. கூட்டிகிட்டு போய் பெரிய மரியாதை இருந்தது, ரொம்ப பெரிய இருந்தது. அப்போ வைஸ் பிரசிடெண்ட்டு தான் அந்த அவார்டு ஹமீத் அன்சாரி கொடுத்தாரு. வாங்கிட்டு போனோன்னே ஊரில் மரியாதைலாம் வேறு மாதிரி ஆயிடுச்சு. இவன் பொழப்பெல்லாமல் மரம் நடுறான்னு திட்டிகிட்டு இருந்தவங்களாம் யோகநாதன் செஞ்சால் சரியாக இருக்கும் அப்படின்னு சொன்னாங்க. இது தொடர்ந்து 2-3 மாதங்கள் ஆகுது. ஏபிஜே அப்துல் கலாம் சார் வந்து நான் ட்ரை பண்ணேன். நான் 2-3 முறையெல்லாம் நிறைய டைம் ட்ரை பண்ணேன், பார்க்க முடியல. அவங்க ஆஃபீஸ்லேருந்து ஃபோன் வந்துச்சு, உங்களை வர சொல்கிறேன். நான் யாரோ பொய் சொல்கிறாங்கன்னு கிண்டல் அடிக்கிறாங்கன்னு இருந்தேன். அப்புறம் போய் பார்த்தேன். போய் பார்த்தோன்னா 2 நிமிஷம்தான். போய் அப்துல் கலாம் பிரசிடென்ட் போய் பார்க்குறேன். பார்த்தோன்னா அவருடைய அசிஸ்டன்ட் பொன்ராஜ், யோகநாதன் டூ லேட், விசிட்டர்ஸ் டைம் ஓவர், கம் பண்ணார். அவர் அப்துல் கலாம் சார் கூப்பிட்டார். பொன்ராஜ் கம்மிய கோ அண்ட் வெயிட், ஐ வில் கால் யூ அப்படின்னு சொன்னார். சொல்லிவிட்டு என்னை உட்கார வச்சிட்டார். உட்கார வச்சு ஸ்டூடெண்ட்டு எப்படி போகிற, ஸ்லைடில் என்னென்ன போடுற, அவங்க எப்படி அப்சர்வ் பண்ணுறாங்க, இதெல்லாம் கேட்டு நீ என் கூட வந்துடுறியா, டெல்லிக்கு வந்துடுறியான்னு கேட்டார். நான் வந்துடுறேன்னு சொன்னேன். அப்புறம் அவர் இறந்து போனார். அவர் இருந்திருந்தால் ஒரு வேளை உங்களோட இந்த பகுதியிலே இருந்திருப்பேன் நான்.
In 2008, June 5th, World Environment Day, marked a significant day in my life. Indian wildlife filmmaker and National Film Awardee, Mr. Mike Pandey's eyes fell on me. He referred my name for an award. In that regard, I got a call from Delhi one fine morning asking me to come there to receive an award. I had not seen or even stepped out of Tamil Nadu, anxious to say yes. I then asked them to send the award by post. There was a brief silence on the other end. The person at the other end said very calmly, Sir, the Vice President of India, Mr. Hamid Ansari, in the presence of the President Pratibha Patil, in recognition of my service, were giving me the Eco Warrior Award of India Award. We can't send it by post, sir. You will have to come and receive it. Please do come. So I went. Now the poor me didn't know what was the protocol to be followed. All I had were 2 old dingy t-shirts, 1 dilapidated half-broken suitcase, and armed with that, I just went about. The people whom Mr. Mike Pandey had known and had coordinated with saw me in that condition. They pitched in the money, helped me buy a suitcase, buy a small little safari suit that would fit me at the last moment, took me to a tailor, got it stitched, tailor made, and dragged me and said, these are not the slippers you're coming with. Go pick up some shoes. They dressed me different and they took me there. All was a daze to me. And I went there, and in the presence from Mr. Hamid Ansari, I received the Eco Warrior of India Award. Now this information spread far and wide as well. My idol, Sri APJ Abdul Kalam, called on me. There were many a times that I wished to see him, but in vain. I could never meet him. One fine day, the call comes saying, Mr. Kalam wishes to see you. Stop kidding, yaar. काय उल्लू बना रहे हो मुझे? इतनी बार तो मैंने कोशिश कर दी, कहाँ मिलना उनसे, और आप बोल रहे हो कि अब वो बुला रहे हैं? हो ही नहीं सकता, फोन रख. And this happened twice, and he cut the call thinking it was someone playing a bad joke on him. The third time another person called, and he said, सर मैं उनका पर्सनल असिस्टेंट बात कर रहा हूँ, प्लीज़ आप फ़ोन मत रखिए, सर बुला रहे हैं, आप ज़रूर आ जाइए. He wishes to speak to you. And I did go there, and when I got to see him in front of me, I was stopped by yet another man saying, आप तो बहुत देर से आ रहे हो, टाइम हो गया सर, आप जाओ यहाँ से. So Sri Abdul Kalam ji called that gentleman and said, तुम बाहर बैठो, उनको अंदर भेजो. And with great pride and my collar lifted up, I walked in. He had a beautiful long discussion with me. Those 15 minutes seemed like eternity to me. He asked me about those days that I was carrying this little small projector and all those wildlife photography and all the small little villages and the school children that I tried to inspire. He asked me how far it was going, how impactful it was, what was my future plans, whether I was willing to travel with him to Delhi and continue this in different cities. I was more than honored to do so. He asked me if I would travel and visit him. I said yes, but unfortunately, he had a very long, eternal visit. He soon passed away. I still remember and I still wish things were different. That probably he would be on this dais, sitting right in the middle, and me right beside him.
இது தொடர்ந்து எவ்ரி மண்டே ஸ்கூல் காலேஜ் ட்ராவல் பண்ணுறது போயிட்டுருக்கு. 2015 டெட்டாக்ஸ் ஸ்பீக்கராக என்னை கூப்பிட்றாங்க. அதற்கு பிறகு ஸ்டேட் பேசுகிறேன், அப்புறம் நேஷ்னல் இப்போ பேசிக்கிட்டு இருக்கிறேன்.
Sorry to interrupt. A tea has been arranged on the both sides of the conference hall. Please feel free to serve. Thank you.
2015 டெட்டாக்ஸ் ஸ்பீக்கராக கூப்பிட்றாங்க. அப்புறம் மூணார் கேரளாவில் நேஷ்னல் லெவலில் பேசுகிறதுக்கு கூப்பிட்றாங்க. அதை பேசுகிறேன். இந்த இடையில வந்து கொடிஷியானாங்க ஒரு பெரிய பிக் ஆர்கனைசேஷன். அவங்க வந்து ஒரு 500 ஏக்கர்ஸ் தொழில்பேட்டைக்கு வாங்கியிருக்காங்க. இப்போ ஜஸ்ட் அங்கே வந்து பெரிய பெரிய சயின்டிஸ்ட்டு என்ஜிஓஸ்லாம் கூப்பிட்றாங்க. ஒரு என்ஜிஓஸ், பெரிய என்ஜிஓஸ், ஒரு 18,000 ருபீஸ் கொடுங்க, ட்ரீ பிளான்ட் பண்ணி தருவோம், பட் வர்றதுக்கு நாங்கள் வளர்கிறதுக்கு கேரண்டி இல்லைன்னா. கடைசி என்னை வந்து கூப்பிட்றாங்க. எனக்கு தெரிஞ்ச அறிவில் நான் மரம் நட்டால் எல்லாம் வந்துடும்னு சொல்கிறேன். என்ன சார் எல்லோரும் இப்படி சொல்கிறாங்க, நீங்கள் சொல்கிறீங்கன்னா, அங்கே மல்ச்சிங் மெத்தடில் நட்டேன். 500 ஏக்கர்ஸ், ஒரு 35 ஏக்கர்ஸ் வந்து ஒரு குட்டி பறவைகள் சரணாலயம் ஒன்று பண்ணேன். இதுக்கு வந்து அது நல்ல பெரிய ரிசல்ட்டாக இருக்குது. பெருந்துறை சிப்காட்டில் ஒரு 18 ஏக்கர், 21 ஏக்கர் ஒரு ஃபாரஸ்ட் பண்ணியிருக்கேன். கோயம்புத்தூர் அக்ரி யூனிவர்சிட்டிக்குள்ளே 75வது சுதந்திரத்தன்னைக்கு சுதந்திர வனம்னு சொல்லி 75 வெரைட்டி ஆஃப் பீசஸ் ட்ரீஸ் நட்டு அதுவும் வளர்ந்துட்டு.
By this time, I had planted close to 6 lakh saplings, of which 3.5 lakh saplings have become full-grown trees. Knowing this, a very massive corporation back in my present hometown, Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, approached me and asked me if I could do something to the hundreds of acres of land that they had. They had built roads and pathways leading to different corporations and buildings within their massive premises. It seems there were quite a few environmentalists, quite a lot of NGOs that had come there and seen the scorching heat, and they said, no tree could survive this. Even the sapling would die and wither away. It's too hot. When they asked me, I said, of course, we can. There are different methods. So what little I knew of the process called mulching process, I taught them, I told them, and I implemented it. And a 500-acre of corridor was laid successfully and beautifully. And I planted on both sides along the corridor rows and rows of trees. For our 75th year of independence celebration, I chose to plant 75 different native varieties of trees inside the Agricultural University, calling them independent trees of our life. In fact, inside the Agri University or the Agricultural University of Tamil Nadu, and inside this massive corporation. Massive corporations have massive money, they have massive network, they have massive support, and yet they somehow wanted me to do things for them. I did not take even a single penny from them, and I planted the 500 acres worth of trees with my own meager sum.
2021 மங்கி பாத்தில் பிரதமர் 75th எபிசோடில் வந்து என்னை பற்றி பேசியிருக்கார். அப்புறம் 2022 ஒன்லி ஒன் அவார்டு இந்தியா கிளைமேட் வாரியர் ஆஃப் தி இயர் ஜல்சக்தி மந்திரி ஜகாவத் சிங் கொடுத்து ஆனர் பண்ணார்.
In 2021, our Honorable Prime Minister, in his Man Ki Baat, episode number 75, mentions me by my name and talks at length about me. That was quite an honor. The Jal Shakti Minister, Sri Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, awarded me the Climate Warrior of the Year, which will be given only to one person for that year. And I had the honor of receiving it in 2022. In the same year, August 15th, the President's office calls on me. I go to Delhi yet again. And this time, I'm being introduced to our Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji, as the Tree Man of India.
2022 ராஷ்டிரபதி பவன்லேருந்து எனக்கு அழைப்பு வந்தது. அங்கே போய் ஒரு 3 பேரை ஆனர் பண்ணாங்க. அதில் நானும் ஒருத்தன். ட்ரீ மேன் இஸ் அ பஸ் கண்டக்டர் ஃப்ரம் தமிழ்நாடு அப்படின்னு சொன்னாங்க. அன்றைக்கே வந்து ட்ரீ மேன் ஆஃப் இந்தியான்னு சொல்லி அறிவித்து கூகுளில் எல்லாம் போட்டாங்க. அதுக்கு பிறகு நம்ம எல்லா இடத்துலையும் ட்ரீ மேன் ஆஃப் இந்தியான்னு என்னை கூப்பிட்றாங்க. 2023 ஒரு பெரிய தலையில் எனக்கு ஒரு இடி விழுந்தது. எனக்கு லங் கேன்சர் வந்துருச்சு. ஒரு டயக்னோஸ் பண்ணதில் ஏதோ ப்ராப்ளம் பண்ணிட்டாங்க. வீட்டில் உள்ள எல்லா பணமும் இல்லை, பணம் இல்லை. என்னோடய சம்பளத்தில் வீட்டுக்கு சாப்பாடு மட்டும் தான், மீதியெல்லாம் ட்ரீ பிளான்டிங்கே செலவு பண்ணேன். ஃபஸ்ட்டு ஆப்ரேஷன் முடிஞ்சாச்சு. 20 days தான் உயிரோடு இருப்பார், வீட்டுக்கு கூட்டிகிட்டு போயிருங்கன்னு சொல்லிட்டாங்க. அதுக்கு பிறகு ஒரு என்வாரன்மெண்டலிஸ்ட் டாக்டர் சேலம் விஜயன்னு சொல்லி அவர்கிட்ட ஃபோன் பண்ணி வீட்டில் என் பொண்ணு ரெண்டு பொண்ணுங்க எனக்கு ஒய்ஃபு அழுகிறாங்க. நான் லவ் மேரேஜ், 2 ஃபேமிலிலையும் கனெக்ட் இல்லை. அவர் விஜயன் டாக்டர் கூப்பிட்டு அந்த டாக்டருக்கு ஃபோன் பண்ணிட்டு கொடுக்க சொல்கிறாரு. ஃபோன் பண்ணி இம்மிடியேட்டாக அவர் வந்து ரிலீவ் பண்ணுன்னு சொல்லி நைட்டோட நைட்டு சேலத்தில் நாமக்கல் தங்கம் கேன்சர் ரிசர்ச் சென்டரில் கொண்டு போகிறோம். டாக்டர் ராஜமாணிக்கம் விடியறதுக்குள்ளே 7 daysக்குள்ளே ஆப்ரேஷன் பண்ண இல்லைன்னா அந்த வைரஸ் எல்லாம் உடம்பு ஃபுல்லாக வந்துடுமா. 6வது நாள் திரும்ப மீண்டும் இந்த ஜஸ்ட் பாயிண்ட்லேருந்து முதுகு வர இப்படி ஓப்பன் பண்ணி பார்த்தா ஃபுல்லாக 2nd layer வரைக்கும் அந்த வைரஸ் வந்துடுச்சு. உடனே திரும்ப அந்த ஒரு லங்ஸை வந்து கட் பண்ணி எடுத்துட்டாங்க. ஃபஸ்ட்டு ஆப்ரேஷன் பண்ண இடத்துல 2 ரிப்பு வந்து 2 ரிப்பு வந்து உடச்சி விட்டாங்க, கையை கழட்டி விட்டாங்க. அதற்கு பிறகு இப்போ மீண்டும் எந்திரிச்சு வந்து ஸ்ட்ராங்காக ஒர்க் பண்ணிகிட்ருக்கிறேன். உயிர் இருக்கிற வரை மரம் நடுகிற பணியை, அவேர்னஸ் ப்ரோக்ராம், பெரிய பெரிய வழக்குகளையும் சந்திச்சிருக்கேன், பண்ணியிருக்கிறேன், தொடர்ந்து பண்ணுவேன் நான்.
Adversity had something big in store for me. You see, I happened to have a love marriage where both the families did not approve of each other. And I was hardly anybody then, not even a bus conductor. And my wife at that time happened to come from a slightly better family. They looked down upon me. She insisted on marrying me and I insisted on marrying her. And we have been holding on to dear lives with each other for so long. So what happened in 2023? I was diagnosed with lung cancer. The big hospital that I went to did a very shoddy job of cutting 2 of my ribs, which wasn't required, dislocating my arm and removing it for this process of surgery, which wasn't required. God knows doing what they wanted to do and did something, patched me up, stitched me up, made me penniless, hopeless and clueless, and said, you have 20 days to live, now go on about your way. Not knowing what to do and thinking this is the end for all of us, my wife and my 2 daughters, desperation set in and they cried for help. A very dear environmentalist friend of mine who happens to also be a medical doctor referred me to another hospital, a smaller town, a smaller hospital, but a big-hearted doctor. He said, let me see what I can do. And once they went in to see what had happened, they realized that things had become worse. My cancer had gone to stage 2. It had spread quite far. They said, I will have to remove 1 lung of yours. Now I need to see if you can survive on just 1 lung. They stopped my heart medically and they saw if my lung could breathe. Fortunately, it did, because the one bad habit I had was fall in love with my wife. Apart from that, I have none. So my lung was pretty pink and pure. That kept on. I was operated upon, and the expense came to roughly about 25 odd lakhs. Now, I'm a person who spends more than 40% of my salary running about, planting trees and saplings, giving none to my wife as well. There are occasions when I say, you know what, I've got a little bit of free time, I'm coming home, let's go to this place, let's go to that place, just get ready. And my wife would be ready and waiting at the door, only to realize the husband is not back home yet. Let me give him a call and find out what he's up to. Only to realize that I'm far away on the other end of the city planting trees somewhere. And this kept happening. Because of that, I garnered the good wishes and the goodwill of many people along the way. The 25 lakhs amount that was given to my surgery, I still have no clue who paid, who all paid, and how much was paid. I'm forever indebted to all those nameless, faceless people, but money just came, and they took care of me. I'm with one lung. I know that. I may be functioning at 50% lung capacity, but I will see to it that the earth's lungs are at full 100% capacity. I am ready to give up even that one lung of mine. I'm ready to take up arms and cudgels and fight legal battles as well, if that's what it takes. It's not new to me. I'm ready to do whatever it takes to ensure that this mission of making the country, making our planet green again, sustainable again, and safe and secure again for our future generations is not given upon.
Last month breathing problem ஆயிடுச்சு, சளி பிடிக்கக்கூடாது. BiPAP machine per day 1000 rupees rent. ஒரு டாக்டர் ஈஸ்வரன் என்னை பார்க்க வராரு வீட்டுக்கு. நிறைய பேர் எனக்கு பழக்கம் இருக்குது. வந்து பார்த்துட்டு எப்படி மாதம் 30,000 கொடுக்கணுமே எப்படி அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு போகிறாரு. மறுநாள் நைட்டு ஒருத்தர் ஒரு 1,35,000 தட் மெஷின் வாங்கி கொண்டு வந்து ஃபிட் பண்ணிட்டு போயிட்டாங்க. இப்படி வச்சுக்கணும், அதில் ஆக்சிஜன் லிங்க் ஆகும், அது வச்சுட்டு அதனால தான் அந்த மேடெல்லாம் எனக்குலாம் ஏற முடியல. கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமாக டெவலப் ஆகிட்டு இருக்கிறேன். இப்படி உதவிகள்லாம் செய்கிறதுக்கு எனக்கு ஆளுங்க நிறைய பேர் இருக்காங்க. அடுத்து முடிச்சு நீலகிரி டிஸ்ட்ரிக்ட், கோயம்புத்தூர் டிஸ்ட்ரிக்ட், ஈரோடு டிஸ்ட்ரிக்ட் ஆல் ஸ்கூல்ஸ் ட்ரீ பிளான் பண்ணி முடிச்சிருக்கிறேன். என்னுடைய தாரக மந்திரமே உயிர் வாழ ஒரு மரம். எல்லாரும் நாம் உயிர் வாழ்கிறதுக்கு, நம்முடைய சந்ததிகள் உயிர் வாழ்கிறதுக்கு ஒரு மரமாவது நட்டு வளர்க்கணும்னு விரும்புகிறேன். நான் இனிமேல் தினந்தோறும் மரம் நடுகிற பணியை செய்கிறதுக்கு தயாராகிட்டேன். நன்றி.
Trees are Earth's lungs. When my single lung was destroyed and I was surviving on one lung, the doctors had warned me that there was this particular machine which was for a rent of 1,000 rupees per day, and I would have to undergo this treatment for the next 30 to 45 days. Paying a rent of 1,000 rupees would cost me about 30 to 45,000 a month. Where am I going to go for it? But then that is the only thing that's going to help you strengthen that one lung that you have and breathe better. This, some good soul, a good Samaritan, happened to know. He decided to buy that machine itself and give it to me. Such gracious people are there on this planet. For them and for their future generations, I have quite a few plans. 1 tree a day, 365 trees a year. That is one of my main concepts for the future. As a community, I propose a systematic approach to our landscape. Every household, every patch of land should host 5 species or 5 specific types of trees. The provider for fruit and nutrition, the protector, the deep-rooted native species for soil stability, the purifier, high oxygen-yielding species for our pure air that we breathe, the shade giver to ensure cooling the microclimate, and the biodiversity host to invite the birds and the bees back into our backyards. To know more about these, the 5 variety or the 5 plant system, or about the 1 tree a day or 365 days tree, you could always connect with me at yogutree.in, directly with me, .org. I'm extremely sorry. In closing, we express our profound gratitude to the office of His Holiness and to each of you for your rigorous attention and for the patience that you have shown us. We depart deeply moved by your boundless hospitality, carrying your warmth and an unwavering spirit of solidarity back into our homes. Your kindness remains our greatest strength and a reminder of humility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marimuthu Yoganandan, the Tree Man of India, for sharing your inspiring grassroots journey and for demonstrating how individual responsibility can lead to a meaningful and lasting environmental changes. And I also would like to warmly acknowledge Mrs. Kamya Mohan, whose clear and thoughtful translation enabled us to fully engage with Mr. Yoganandan's message. With this, we conclude the first session of the conference, and my sincere thanks to both the speaker and our translator for their time, dedication, and invaluable contribution to this important discussion. Thank you. And now I hand over the stage to Ms. Hema Kanpal, who will moderate the next session of the conference. Wishing you all the engaging and insightful discussion ahead. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I warmly welcome you all to second session of this conference. I am Hema Kanpal, a research scholar from Pantnagar University, Uttarakhand, currently working on waste management. And I am honored to have this opportunity to be here as moderator. Thank you so much for that. Going ahead for second session, this session brings together powerful perspective on environmental conservation from grassroots water initiatives, as well as sacred landscape and environmental activism and advocacy. So we have 3 speakers here. Our first talk focus on importance of environmental conservation and its contribution in human well-being through grassroots initiative by Mr. Mohanchand Kanpal. I will give brief introduction of all our speakers, and then we will move ahead for speakers session. So Mohanchand Kanpal, our first speaker, he is from Uttarakhand. He is a teacher by profession in a government school. From last 36 years, he is working for grassroots development through environmental conservation, as well as with women and rural villages. He is addressing these issues and asking government through different ways to solve them, as well as taking environmental conservation initiative to solve the problems of environment in Kumaon Himalayan region of Uttarakhand. We have our next speaker, Dr. Rajan Kotru. He is a well-known sustainability expert. He has worked on Himalayan ecology, climate resilience, sustainable development, and environmental governance. He has 37 years of experience across 19 countries and has published more than 150 publications. He has served as Senior National and International Evaluator for National Resource Management programs and has led many projects in mountain ecosystem for restoration and governance. Our third speaker, Dr. Lobsang Yangso. She is Tibetan environmental activist and researcher who has highlighted Tibetan environmental situation under Chinese occupation at various regional and global forums. So we will move ahead with our first speaker, Mr. Mohanchand Kanpal. So I invite him to speak about his, you can continue from there. आप वहीं से शुरू कर सकते हैं? Oh, it's okay. So he will speak about his journey further. Thank you so much.
धन्यवाद हेमा कांडपाल जी. मैं थोड़ा सा आप लोगों से पहले इंट्रोड्यूस होना चाहता हूँ कि कितने लोग हिंदी समझ सकते हैं इसमें से, केवल समझना है हिंदी समझने वाले। हाँ, तो काफ़ी लोग हैं। अगर कहीं प्रॉब्लम आएगी तो फिर हेमा कांडपाल उसको ट्रांसलेट कर देगी इंग्लिश में, नहीं तो ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ेगी, मेरे को ऐसा लग रहा है। मेरा नाम, जैसा कि हेमा कांडपाल जी ने बताया कि मेरा नाम मोहन कांडपाल है और मैं उत्तराखंड के डिस्ट्रिक्ट अल्मोड़ा के पास एक द्वाराहाट जगह है, वहाँ रहता हूँ, एक रूरल एरिया में एकदम। बहुत सारे ग्रामीण क्षेत्र में ही अपना जीवन बिता रहा हूँ। पहले तो मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा, आज यहाँ पर तिब्बतियन पॉलिसी इंस्टीट्यूट वालों ने 86 आदरणीय दलाई लामा जी के वर्षगांठ पर मुझे यहाँ पर बुलाया, इसलिए इंस्टीट्यूट के सभी लोगों का मैं तहे दिल से धन्यवाद करना चाहता हूँ कि उन्होंने हमें आज इस मंच पर बोलने का मौका दिया। मुझे जो आदेश हुआ है इंस्टीट्यूट की तरफ से वो ये हुआ है कि आप अपने जीवन के अनुभव, जहाँ से आपने काम शुरू किया था वहाँ से बताइए, स्टार्ट करिए वहाँ से। तो हम वहीं चलते हैं। मेरा जन्म उत्तराखंड के कांडे गांव में हुआ और उसके बाद मैं जब 5 ईयर का था तो मैं कानपुर शिफ्ट हो गया। कानपुर महानगर एक उत्तर प्रदेश का एक सिटी है बहुत बड़ा। मेरा KG to MSc एजुकेशन कानपुर महानगर में हुआ। उसके बाद मैं जब एक बार उत्तराखंड घूमने गया तो मेरे को ऐसा लगा, क्योंकि मैं वहाँ विवेकानंद जी के काफ़ी लिटरेचर पढ़ता था, रामकृष्ण मिशन के नज़दीक रहता था। तो जब घूमने गया था तब मैं इंटर का विद्यार्थी था। तो जब मैं पहाड़ घूमने गया, अपने गांव गया, तो मुझे ये लगा कि मैं ये महानगर में क्या कर रहा हूँ, या मेरी फैमिली महानगर क्यों शिफ्ट हो गई ये गांव छोड़ करके। तो फिर मैंने तय कर लिया कि मैं वापस अपने गांव आऊँगा, लेकिन क्योंकि मध्यम वर्ग के स्टूडेंट फैमिली के हैं तो ये फादर ने बोला कि आप पूरी एजुकेशन कंप्लीट करो, उसके बाद एज यू लाइक। तो MSc करने के बाद फिर मैंने अपना उठाया झोला और मैं सीधे गांव में जाके रहने लगा। प्रारंभ में बड़ी प्रॉब्लम थी क्योंकि गांव से 3 किलोमीटर दूर रोड थी, पानी की समस्या थी, बहुत पिछड़ा एरिया था। लोगों का मानना था कि आप कितने दिन रहोगे, जो रिलेटिव्स थे, लोग थे, उन सबका एक प्रकार से था कि आप 1-2 साल, ज़्यादा 1-2 महीने रहोगे, 6 महीने रहोगे, साल भर रहोगे, फिर वापस आ जाओगे। लेकिन मैं दृढ़ था कि मैं गांव में ही रहूँगा, चाहे जितनी भी प्रॉब्लम हो रही होगी। तय कर लिया कि मुझे स्वामी विवेकानंद जी से ऐसा कुछ मेरे माइंड में सेट हो गया था कि मुझे गांव में रह के कुछ काम करना है और सामाजिक काम करना है। लेकिन ये नहीं तय था कि मुझे करना क्या है, ये मुझे नहीं पता था। क्योंकि MSc करने के बाद मेरे को लग रहा था कुछ करना है समाज के लिए, ऐसे कुछ करना है। क्योंकि फैमिली के लोग, ज़्यादातर गांव के लोग बहुत पढ़े लिखे थे, ब्यूरोक्रेसी में थे, अन्य जगह पर थे। सब लोग कहते ये पागलपन क्या करने जा रहे हो तुम, गांव में क्या करोगे जाकर। मैंने कहा मुझे गांव में करना है बस, चाहे जितनी भी प्रॉब्लम आ जाए। तो लेकिन क्या करना है इसका मुझे कोई रास्ता नहीं था मेरे पास। तो मैं गाँव में जा कर के, हमारे गांव में एक पंचायत घर थी, पंचायत घर में मैंने कहा सबसे पहला क्या होता है कि पढ़ाओ बच्चों को, एजुकेशन दो बच्चों को। तो मैंने मंदिर में के पास ही पंचायत घर में बच्चों को पढ़ाना शुरू कर दिया। ऐसे ही मैंने भी देखा कि कुछ दिन यहाँ रहूँगा, फिर आगे सोचूंगा 1-2 साल बाद नौकरी करनी है, क्या करना है, किस डायरेक्शन में जाना है। तो फिर मैंने वहाँ पर जब पढ़ाना शुरू किया बच्चों को, तो बहुत सारे बच्चे गाँव के आ जाते थे, वहीं पर पढ़ाया जाता था। तो एक दिन में कक्षा 3 के एक बच्चे को पढ़ो बोल रहा था, तो किताब में लिखा था रोज नहाना चाहिए, एवरीडे नहाना चाहिए, रोज मुंह हाथ धोने चाहिए। तो वो बच्चा हंसा बड़ी जोर से। तो मैंने कहा तू क्यों हंसा? हालांकि मैं पहाड़ी भाषा में बोला था, अपनी लैंग्वेज में जितना बोल सकता था, मैं जानता नहीं था तब। तो उसने कहा माँ साहब, यानी कि टीचर, उसने माँ साहब लोकल भाषा में कहा। उन्होंने कहा कि टीचर, यहाँ मुंह धोने के लिए पानी अवेलेबल नहीं है, मुंह धोने के लिए पानी नहीं है, और आप नहाने और कपड़े धोने की बात, इन सब की बात कर रहे हो, तो ये कैसे संभव है? उस बच्चे ने मेरे को डायरेक्शन दी कि काम कहाँ करना है, प्रॉब्लम क्या है, लेकिन अब इसका हल क्या है। क्योंकि पानी, मैं भी कानपुर महानगर में 3 टाइम नहाता था कम से कम गर्मियों के दिनों में, और शहर में जाकर के 3 किलोमीटर दूर पर एक छोटी सी रिस्क नदी थी, उस नदी में नहाने जाता था, क्योंकि जिद्दी था कि रहना है गांव में, अब करना है कुछ। तो मैं प्रॉब्लम मेरे को लगती नहीं थी कि प्रॉब्लम जैसी है। बच्चे ने जब ऐसा कहा तो एक मेरे माइंड में सेट हो गया कि पानी पर कुछ काम करना है, लेकिन क्या करना है इसका मेरे को नॉलेज नहीं था। उसी बीच कभी कभी होता है, हिंदी में कहते हैं जहां चाहा वहां रहा। उसी बीच हमारे गांव से 3 किलोमीटर दूर पर एक इंटर कॉलेज है। उस इंटर कॉलेज में ये केमिस्ट्री लेक्चरर का पोस्ट जो है वैकेंट हो गया। तो मैं एमएससी केमिस्ट्री था, तो मुझसे लोगों ने कहा अगर तेरे को गांव में ही रहना है तो तू यहीं टीचिंग शुरू कर दे। तो एडेड स्कूल था, तो मेरे को वहीं पर जॉब मिल गया गांव के पास ही। तो मैं गांव के पास ही रहना शुरू कर दिया। अब मेरे को ये गांव वालों से, जब मैं लोगों से डिस्कस करता था प्रॉब्लम के बारे में, तो कुछ और बात आती थी, और जब बड़े लोगों से बात करने जाता था, दिल्ली, नैनीताल या अल्मोड़ा वगैरह, जो हाई एजुकेटेड थे, वीसी साहब थे कुमाऊं यूनिवर्सिटी के, डॉक्टर डी पंत, वाल्दिया जी थे भूगर्भ विज्ञान के एक्सपर्ट, उनसे जब बात, और लोगों से, डॉक्टर ललित पांडे उस जमाने में कैलिफोर्निया यूनिवर्सिटी के कंप्यूटर साइंस के पीएचडी करके आए हुए थे, आईआईटीएन थे, उनसे जब बात करता था कुछ और बात आती थी। गांव वालों से जब बात करता था कुछ और बात होती थी। मेरे को कुछ मैं खुद कंफ्यूज हो गया था, होना क्या है। तो मैंने कहा कि एक अपने ही कॉलेज में एक मीटिंग ऑर्गेनाइज कर दी। मैंने कहा आप लोग कुछ बात और कहते हो, वहाँ गांव वाले कुछ और कहते हैं, आप सब लोग गांव में आइए, एक बार हमारे कॉलेज में आइए, 1-2 दिन का डिस्कशन करते हैं। आए वो लोग, बहुत से लोग यहाँ से आए। आप लोगों ने नाम सुना होगा एक्स गवर्नर बीडी पांडे जी का, तो काफ़ी वो तो नहीं आए, डॉक्टर ललित पांडे, अन्य लोग, डॉक्टर डी पंत, डॉक्टर वाल्दिया जी भूगर्भ के एक्सपर्ट, और काफ़ी अन्य जो एक्टिविस्ट थे, उन सबको मैंने वहाँ बुलाया। और गांव के एक्टिविस्ट लोग, जो गांव के सामंत लोग थे, गांव के लोग थे, उन लोगों को भी बुलाया और डिस्कशन हुआ। तो 3 चीज़ें निकली उसमें। एक तो यह हुआ कि ग्रामीण का, गांव का डेवलपमेंट तब होगा उस वक्त जब महिलाएं आगे आएंगी, वीमेन आगे आके कुछ वर्क करेंगी, वो लोग कुछ चिंतन करेंगी, वो लोग कुछ अपनी राय देंगी। तो महिलाओं को डेवलप करना है, महिलाओं को आगे लाना है, क्योंकि वहाँ पर पूरा का पूरा महिलाएं 18-20 घंटे काम करती थी। पर उत्तराखंड का मतलब ये हिमाचल जैसा से 18-20 घंटे काम करती थी, और उनको उनके बच्चों की देख रेख के लिए भी कोई नहीं था, उनको बहुत सारी प्रॉब्लम्स थी। दूसरा, उन्होंने कहा कि जब तक हम लोग प्लांटेशन नहीं करेंगे, बांज का, वो भी ओक का, पानी रिजर्व करने वाला पेड़ लगाने होंगे। मैंने कहा चलिए, तो ये सब आप लोगों, उन्होंने कहा करना होगा। तो उस वक्त मैं लगभग 25 ईयर का होऊंगा। तो मैंने कहा इस काम को मैं करूंगा, आप लोग चिंता न करें, मैं महिलाओं को अवेयर करूंगा, प्लांटेशन कराऊंगा। तो मैंने एक अभियान चला दिया। उसके बाद वो मीटिंग लगभग समाप्त हो गई, और लोगों ने मुझसे ये ज़रूर कहा, ये सब एक्सपर्ट लोगों ने, कि जहाँ पर आपको आर्थिक प्रॉब्लम आएगी वहाँ पर हम आपको हेल्प करेंगे। सभी ने कहा हम देंगे आपको, जहाँ पर भी खर्चे की ज़रूरत होगी हम देंगे। उसके बाद हमने वहाँ से काम शुरू किया। फिर महिला संगठन, उस वक्त महिला संगठन का मतलब बड़ा कठिन था। 90 की बात कर रहा हूँ मैं, लगभग 91 की। महिलाओं को गांव में बाहर निकलना बहुत मुश्किल होता था, डिस्कस करना भी बहुत मुश्किल होता था, बहुत सारा प्रॉब्लम आया उसमें। क्योंकि समय कम है, मैं वो प्रॉब्लम बहुत ज़्यादा फेस नहीं कर रहा हूँ। मैंने फिर गांव में मीटिंग करना शुरू किया। 1 गांव, 2 गांव, 3 गांव, 4 गांव महिला संगठन बनाने शुरू किए, और लगभग 82 गाँव में मैं 3-4 साल में महिला संगठन मैंने बना दिए। साथ में महिलाओं से प्लांटेशन कराने के लिए पौधशालाएँ तैयार करवा दी, पौधशालाओं से प्लांटेशन कराना शुरू कर दिया। इधर बच्चों को, क्योंकि छोटे बच्चे थे, उन बच्चों को हमने, उनके लिए इको सेंटर शाम को 4 बजे से 6 बजे तक पर्यावरण शिक्षा संध्या केंद्र, यानी कि जो इन्वायरमेंटल एजुकेशन देते हैं, वो सेंटर लगभग 42 सेंटर स्टार्ट कर दिए, जिसके लिए मुझे डॉक्टर ललित पांडे और कई अन्य लोगों ने हेल्प करी कि आप इन सेंटरों को हम हेल्प करेंगे। वो सेंटर सब चलाने शुरू किए। लेकिन पानी की भी बहुत बड़ी समस्या थी, वो हल नहीं हो रही थी। बहुत सारे काम किए, फिर यह हुआ कि पानी कैसे आए। तो मैंने कहा इसमें क्या हो सकता है। ये तो समझ में मेरे भी नहीं आ रहा था कि ये जो गांव का नौला था, जो मेन रिसोर्स था गांव का पहला, जिससे हम लोग पानी भरते थे, या यहाँ जो यहाँ पर भी होता होगा रिसोर्स, यहाँ पर भी होता, हम लोग क्या नौला बोलते हैं, नौला और धारा, जो पहाड़ से पानी आता है, वो सब सूख रहे थे। तो हम लोग ने कहा एक मूवमेंट करते हैं, एक आंदोलन करते हैं। और एक आंदोलन हुआ लगभग 46 दिन का। डीएम उस वक्त हुआ करते थे आर के सिंह जी, वो वहाँ आए और उन्होंने उसके लिए टैप वाटर, कहीं से पानी जो है टैप करके मंगवा दिया, नल लगा दिए सब घरों में। धीरे धीरे वो सब जगह नल लग गए। जो नल लग गए तो वो जो वाटर रिसोर्स थे उसकी तरफ और ध्यान जाना बंद हो गया लोगों का। जो मूल था हमारा, जो प्रथम इकाई थी पानी की, नदियों की, वो बंद हो गई। ये मेरे बात समझ में नहीं आई थी, लेकिन कि ये प्रथम इकाई बंद हो रही है। मैंने कहा ठीक है, पानी का प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो गया, पेड़ लगाते जाओ, पेड़ लगाते जाओ। लाखों पेड़ लगाए, बच्चों ने लगाए, छोटे छोटे बच्चों ने लगाए, लेकिन नौले धारों में पानी नहीं बढ़ रहा था उस तादाद में जिसमें जितना उनको बढ़ना चाहिए था, बल्कि ड्राई हो रहे थे। तो मैंने फिर, क्योंकि मैं हर महीने मीटिंग करता था गांव की, महिलाओं से ज़्यादातर मैं अपना जो ज्ञान लेता था, जो भी मैं काम करता था, वो महिलाओं से डिस्कशन करने के बाद तय करता था कि मुझे क्या करना है आगे। तो उसके बाद बहुत सारे सेंटर में बच्चों से भी जो सेंटर होते थे, उन सेंटरों में छोटे छोटे पौधशालाएं बनवाई थी, वो बच्चे भी उन पेड़ों को लगाते थे। ये सब करते करते बहुत सारी अन्य उसमें महिलाओं ने बहुत सारा वो किया। उस वक्त सैनिटेशन पर बिल्कुल काम, गांव में शौचालय थे ही नहीं, उस पर भी काम, बहुत सारे क्षेत्रों में काम किया। लेकिन पानी की समस्या का हल उस तादाद में नहीं हो रहा था जितना कि होना चाहिए था, सूख रहे थे। ये सब बड़ा चिंता का विषय था। उसी बीच में एक बुजुर्ग व्यक्ति ने मुझसे कहा कि जो हमारे पहाड़ के ऊपरी क्षेत्र में पहले से जंगल में ऐसे तालाब बनाए हुए थे बहुत सारे ज़मीन में, उनमें बारिश रुकती थी तो वो पानी जो है नीचे चला जाता था। वो भी मैंने खुदवाए, उनको भी ठीक कराया, लेकिन उतना फिर भी हल नहीं हुआ। उसके बाद ये पेड़ लगाने के बाद जंगल बने काफ़ी, लगभग 1 लाख पेड़ हैं आज हमारे क्षेत्र में, जो हम लोग के संगठन ने या हम लोग ने लगवाए हैं। विद्यार्थियों से स्कूल में पेड़ लगवाए, विद्यार्थियों के साथ भी मैंने 3 स्कूल गोद लिए, तीनों इंटर कॉलेज के बच्चों के द्वारा प्लांटेशन भी कराया। 2012 तक हमारे ही गांव में, जिस गांव में मैं था, वहाँ भी नौले धारे सूख गए थे। 2010 में एक बहुत बड़ी आपदा आई थी, आपको याद है नहीं, अल्मोड़ा में बहुत बड़ी आई थी। उससे जहाँ से पानी आता था, टेप जहाँ से किया हुआ था, वो पेयजल योजनाएं सब टूट गई, तो पानी आना बंद हो गया। अब पानी कहाँ से आए? तो कहीं से किसी नौले में थोड़ा बहुत दूर कहीं पर पानी था, तो दूर लोग पानी लेने के लिए गए। तो एक मीटिंग कर रहा था मैं गांव में 2012 में, तो लगभग 80 साल की एक बूढ़ी माता जी ने, यानी आमा जिसको बोलते हैं हम लोग के यहाँ, ओल्ड ग्रैंडमदर, उसने कहा, मास्टर कुछ नहीं होने वाला है तेरे पानी का, तू करता रहा मीटिंग। मैंने कहा क्यों? अब ये सब बारी डिस्कशन पहाड़ी में हो रहा था, अपनी लैंग्वेज में हो रहा था। उनने कहा यहाँ हम लोग जो ऊपर को, ये नौले धारों से ऊपर को खेत हुआ करते थे, छोटे छोटे सीढ़ीदार खेत होते थे, वो सारे खेतों में हम लोग पहले से हल जोतते थे, और खेत का ढलान हल्का सा पहाड़ी की तरफ को होता था। और जब खेत में हल जोतते थे तो बारिश पड़ती थी तो वो जमीन उसको अंदर डाल देती थी, और जब हम लोग निराई गुड़ाई करते थे तब भी हम खेत को ढीला कर देते थे, और मुडेर होती थी खेत में, जिसके कारण पानी रुकता था और वो जमीन के अंदर चला जाता था। आज की तिथि में उसने कहा सब लोग छोड़ के दिल्ली, हमारे लोकल में बोलते हैं दिल्ली चले गए। उनका सब लोग दिल्ली चले गए, सारे खेत बंजर हो गए हैं। जिनका ढाल पहाड़ी की तरफ का था, उनका ढाल अब ऐसा हो गया, पानी एक बूंद भी खेत में रुकता नहीं है। जब तुम लोग पानी बो ही नहीं रहे हो, तो एक नौले में जो नीचे नौला होता था, वाटर रिसोर्स होता था, उसमें पानी आएगा कहाँ से? तुमने रिचार्ज, हम लोग ऐसे बोल रहे हैं रिचार्ज, इनडायरेक्टली उनका कहना था कि आप रिचार्ज कर ही नहीं रहे हो, खेत का सब अस्त व्यस्त हो गए, टूट टाट गए, क्योंकि खेती करना बंद हो गया है, सब लोग शहर में चले गए हैं रहने के लिए। तो सब के सब ऐसा हो गया है, तो पानी तुम्हारा इस नौले में नहीं आएगा जो तुम कोशिश कर रहे हो। ठीक है, तेरे प्लांटेशन तूने किया है, भी पेड़ लग रहे हैं, हो सकता है 50 साल बाद 40 साल बाद इनमें प्लांटेशन का प्रभाव हो, लेकिन उनने उस आमा ने, जो कि अनपढ़ थी, उसने मुझे ये कॉन्सेप्ट दिया। तो मैंने कहा, मैंने फिर जिन गांवों में 27 गांव का सर्वे किया और उन गांवों में जाके देखा कि जिन गांवों में आज भी नौले धारों के ऊपर के क्षेत्र में खेती हो रही थी, वो नौले भरे हुए थे, वहाँ नौले पानी था, और जहाँ बहुत ज़्यादा पलायन हो गया था, खेत बंजर हो चुके थे, गांव के गांव खाली हो गए थे, वहाँ के सारे नौले धारे सूख गए थे, ड्राई हो गए थे। ये बात मेरे समझ में आई, तो मैंने एक नारा दिया। और इस बीच ऐसा भी हो गया था कि जो हमारे नज़दीक में रिस्कन नदी थी, छोटी सी एक रिस्कन नदी है, उस रिस्कन नदी, जो कि अभी आपको दिखाई दे रही, इस पर भी बात करते हैं, वो जो रिस्कन नदी थी, इसको रोक लें, अभी करते हैं इस पर। रिस्कन नदी थी, ये पूरी की पूरी सूख गई थी। इसका यह हाल हो गया था कि जब ये पूरी सूख गई थी तो इसके बीच में खड्डे कर करके पानी निकालने की वो चल रही थी, उससे पानी पिया जा रहा था। मई जून में सरकार को टैंकरों से पानी भेजना पड़ता था, बहुत कई जगहों तो खच्चरों से पानी भेजना पड़ा सरकार को, यह हाल हो गया था। तो मैंने जब उस माता जी की बात सुनी, उस आमा की बात सुनी, तो मैंने उसको सर्वे करने के बाद मेरे को समझ में आया कि हर खेत में हल जोतना जरूरी है। या तो हर खेत में हल जोता जाए, और या फिर हर खेत में एक छोटा सा तालाब बना दिया जाए, जो खेत का पानी खेत में रुक जाए। तो इसी नारे को मैंने आगे बढ़ा दिया और मैंने कहा, पानी बो, पानी उगाओ, ये नारा दिया उसमें। अब इसमें भाई पैसा कहाँ से आए? फिर वही बात हुई कि जो लोग शहरों में बैठे थे, गांव छोड़ के चले गए थे, मेरे पढ़ाए हुए, 36 साल से मैं वहीं टीचर हूँ, तो मेरे पढ़ाए हुए विद्यार्थी भी जॉबों में थे। तो मैंने सबसे कहा कि आप लोग ही इस गांव को बचाने, इन गांव को बचाने के लिए पानी के लिए पैसा दो, खाओ के लिए। और तब लोगों ने देना शुरू किया। 2012 से शुरू हुआ था इसमें युद्ध स्तर का इस रिस्कन नदी को बचाने के लिए कार्य, और लगभग 20 लाख रुपए हमारे पास एकत्रित हुए, और हमने हर जगह, हर खेत में लगभग खाव बना दिया, जिससे कई नौले धारे जो बिल्कुल ड्राई हो गए थे, वो फिर से उनमें पानी आ गया, फिर से वो बढ़िया। 27 नौले ऐसे हैं, आज के 17 नौले ऐसे हैं जिनमें पानी रिचार्ज हो गया। तो क्योंकि उसके ऊपर के सारे खेतों में हमने खाव बनवा दिए। इसी को लेकर के नारा दिया, और इसी दूसरा मेरा एक काम इसमें ये रहा, और इसमें एक खाली मैंने नहीं किया, इसमें हमने जोड़ा महिलाओं को, महिला संगठनों को, इसमें मैंने जोड़ा स्कूल के बच्चों को, सबसे ज़्यादा स्कूल के बच्चों को जोड़ा। मेरा मानना है कि एजुकेशन में जैसे हम लोग बच्चों को पढ़ाते हैं, हम ये तो पढ़ा लेते हैं कि गंगा नदी क्या है, यमुना नदी क्या है, सिंधु नदी क्या है, ये सब, व्यास नदी क्या है, ये सब तो पढ़ाते हैं किताब में, लेकिन हम उनको ये फोकस नहीं कर पाते कि तुम्हारे बगल वाले नदी का क्या हाल है, उसको भी थोड़ा सा पढ़ा जाए। तो मैंने इसमें जो छुट्टियों के दिनों में, स्कूल टाइम पर नहीं, मैंने बच्चों की 18-18 किलोमीटर, 20-20 किलोमीटर की पदयात्राएं कराई, और उन बच्चों से कहा कि लोगों से पूछो कि ये नौला क्यों सूख, ये नदी क्यों सूखी, इस पर रिसर्च करो, और गेंडी फावड़ा लेके साथ में चलो, जहाँ मौका मिला वहीं पर एक खाव बना दिया। इस प्रकार से लगभग 3 स्कूलों के बच्चों ने इसको बहुत बड़े स्तर पर किया। महिलाओं को जहाँ मौका मिला उसको लग गए। उसके बाद ये नारा पूरे उत्तराखंड में छा गया, क्योंकि उत्तराखंड सरकार ने इसको गंभीरता से लिया, और मुख्यमंत्री जी से कई बार बात हुई कि ये सब चला उनके साथ, तो सब सिलसिला है। तो फिर इस बार जो वाटर रिसोर्स मिनिस्ट्री, हमारी जो जल शक्ति मंत्रालय है, ये बात वहाँ तक पहुँची, तो उन्होंने इस बार वहाँ आकर के पूरा सर्वे किया, देखा, और देखने के बाद जब रिस्कन नदी में पानी देखा, तो उन्होंने इस बार राष्ट्रीय अवार्ड दिया, 6ठा राष्ट्रीय जल पुरस्कार। तो मेरा मत कहना है कि 3 लोगों में ये मुख्य रूप से कार्य करेगा। एक जो आपका बच्चों के साथ काम करना पड़ेगा, बच्चों को बताना पड़ेगा कि आने वाले 20 साल बाद जैसे आज पानी का दिवालियापन होने वाला है, और ये आप सब लोग बुद्धिजीवी हैं, सब जानते हैं कि पानी जिस प्रकार से ग्राउंड का ख़त्म हो रहा है, चाहे वो पर्वतीय क्षेत्र हो चाहे मैदानी क्षेत्र हो, उससे भयावह स्थिति होने वाली है। क्लाइमेट चेंज तो हो रहा है, ये सभी जानते हैं कि अभी जहाँ पर हम लोग बैठे हैं बर्फ़ होनी चाहिए थी लेकिन नहीं है। तो मेरा मानना है कि हमको बच्चों को इसमें फोकस करना पड़ेगा, बच्चों को इसमें जोड़ना पड़ेगा कि 10 साल या 20 साल बाद जब तुम बड़े हो जाओगे तुम्हारे लिए बड़ी स्थिति खराब होगी। और इसको काफ़ी सरकार ने सुना है, उत्तराखंड सरकार ने बड़ी गंभीरता से अभी लिया है, कई बार मीटिंग करी हैं और ये सोचा है कि आप पूरे स्कूलों में इस प्रकार का एक कोर्स लगाया जाए, एक प्रकार की पहल करी जाए कि बच्चे अपने नौले धारे, अपने गांव के जो पास की नदी है उस पर सर्वे करें और जानें कि क्यों पानी हमारा सूख गया, क्या कारण हुआ, उस पर लिखें, रिसर्च करें। तो ये बच्चों ने जब शुरू किया, इसमें लिखे, आर्टिकल लिखे, इंटर तक के बच्चों ने, बहुत अच्छा इसका प्रभाव पड़ा और साथ साथ में महिलाएं इसमें जागरूक हुई और उसके साथ साथ सब युवा, सबसे ज़्यादा इसमें युवा हम लोग के साथ जुड़े। और जो लोग शहरों में रहते थे, जो लोग शहरों में रह करके गांव की बात तो करते हैं लेकिन गांव के लिए कुछ करना नहीं चाहते हैं, तो सबसे ज़्यादा मैंने उनको पकड़ा दिल्ली, बम्बई, कलकत्ता में कि आप लोग खाली बात मत करो, गांव में आकर के कुछ करो, चाहे आप अपना खेत छोड़ गए तो अपने खेत में जाओ। और आज हमने ये करा है, जन्म पर और शादी पर, बच्चा होने पर या क्या नाम कहते, मृत्यु पर, सब लोग खाव खोदेंगे अपने लोगों के याद में। हर खेत में खाव आपको आज हमारे क्षेत्र में दिखेगा। यही हमारा मूल काम है। और इसलिए मैं अंत में ये कहना चाहूँगा कि जिस प्रकार का हालत हो गई है कि 18% पॉपुलेशन हमारा है इंडिया का और केवल 4% पानी हमारे पास पीने के लिए है पूरे अभी, तो ये जो स्थितियां हैं वो बड़ी गंभीर हैं। भले ही हम आज की तिथि में बोतलों का पानी पी ले रहे हैं और जिस प्रकार से पूरा पानी का बाजारीकरण हो रहा है वो चिंता का विषय है, क्योंकि वो नौले धारे, वो पुराने गांव के उसमें बड़ी स्थितियां खराब हैं। हमको अपनी जो प्रथम इकाई है नौला, और जो गांधी जी का विचार था कि सबसे पहले गांव को हमको समृद्ध करना है, तो वो अगर हम पानी के मामले में भी अगर फिर से गांव को समृद्ध कर लें, जो 1947 में जिस स्तर पर गांव में पानी था उस स्तर पर फिर से पहुंचाना होगा, तब जा कर के हम लोग एक बार फिर से पानी की, कहते हैं यहाँ दूध की नदियाँ बहती थी, यहाँ तो अब पानी की नदी बहना मुश्किल हो रहा है। तो ये सब हम लोगों की चिंता का विषय है। मैं हेमा जी से उम्मीद करूँगा कि इसको प्रारंभ से शुरू कर दें। इसमें हम लोग पानी निकालते थे, नदी पूरी ड्राई हो गई एकदम, कहीं भी इसमें पानी नहीं था। जब ऐसी स्थिति हो जाती थी तो गांव में टैंकरों से पानी भेजा गया, जहां पर सड़कें नहीं थी वहां खच्चरों से पानी भेजना पड़ा गवर्नमेंट को। ये स्थितियां हैं उस वक्त की। ये हमारे पुराने, उस वक्त नौलों का यह हाल हो गया था, जो वाटर रिसोर्स थे पुराने हमारे, वो बिल्कुल खत्म हो गए थे। नेक्स्ट, फिर हमने इसमें 4 स्तरों पर काम करना शुरू किया। महिलाओं के साथ जागरूकता, बच्चों के साथ जागरूकता, युवाओं के साथ जागरूकता, और प्लांटेशन जो पहले से ही कर रहे थे उसमें वो वाले पेड़ जैसे ओक के हैं, ऐसे पेड़ों को लगाना जो पानी को रोकते हैं, रिजर्व करते हैं, ऐसे पेड़ों के लिए हमने उसमें किया। और कम्युनिटी को जोड़ा, सबसे ज़्यादा कम्युनिटी को जोड़ा हमने इसमें हमने बच्चों को जोड़ा स्कूल के एक पद यात्रा के दौरान कि वो लोग अपनी नदी को जानने के लिए लोगों से मिलें। उसमें हमने युवाओं के साथ मीटिंग की, कैसे हो पाएगा। ये ग्राम पंचायत सदस्य हैं, ग्राम प्रधान, क्षेत्र पंचायत, जो ग्राम पंचायत के लोग होते हैं, उनके साथ मीटिंग शुरू करी। साथ में महिलाओं के साथ बहुत सारी गांव-गांव में मीटिंग शुरू करी कि आप लोग इसको बचाना है, रिस्क नदी को, इसके लिए आगे आइए। नेक्स्ट, और ये बच्चों के साथ डिस्कशन करना शुरू किया रास्ते में कि कैसे आप लोग इस पानी को, अपने नदी नौल और धारे या उनके बारे में आप लोगों को जानना है बच्चों को, क्योंकि फ्यूचर इनका है, हम लोग का उतना नहीं जितना इनका है। ये इनको बिल्कुल ये तैयार किया गया कि घर में अगर आपसे कहा जा रहा है कि बेटा पढ़ोगे नहीं तो खाओगे कैसे, तो हम आपसे कह रहे हैं कि पानी होगा नहीं तो पियोगे कहाँ से। ये एक प्रकार से बच्चों में प्रारंभ किया। ये महिलाओं को प्लांटेशन के लिए तैयार किया, उनके द्वारा पेड़ ले जाके लगवाने प्रारंभ किए। ये लगभग 82 गांव में ये काम हुआ और साथ में वो महिलाएं ले जा रही हैं स्वयं, क्योंकि नर्सरी पौधे मिलते नहीं थे, तो महिलाओं ने स्वयं पौधशालाएं तैयार कराई उनसे इन पौधशालाओं। उसके अलावा उनकी रख रखाव भी उन्होंने खुद किया। ये महिलाओं ने खुद एक प्लांटेशन के लिए पेड़ पौधशालाएं तैयार करी और उसके बाद उसको रोपित करना शुरू किया। इस पौधशालाओं के लिए केवल पॉलीथीन अवेलेबल कराया। दिल्ली में ही हमारे एक साथी हैं, उन्होंने कहा मैं जितना पॉलीथीन लगेगा पैसा मैं दूंगा, मैं खरीद के भेज दूंगा यहाँ से। फिर जो बारिश आती है वो बारिश नौलों के ऊपर के खेतों में इस प्रकार से रोकी गई कि वो खेत में टैंक बना करके वहीं रोक दिया गया उसको, कि वो बह ना पाए। वो क्यों, ये खेत है, ये पहले से इसमें खेती होती थी, ये सब खेत हैं जिनमें खेती होती थी। आज सब पलायन के कारण बढ़ती शिक्षा के बाद सब लोग बाहर निकल गए, तो वो सब का सब नहीं तो बंजर हो गया था। तो ये इनमें सब, ये सब के सब में जो है ये खेतों में ऐसे खेतों में के ऊपर खाव बना करके बारिश के जल को रोका गया, जिससे कि वो ज़मीन के अंदर रिचार्ज हो जाए। इसमें सीमेंट नहीं लगाया गया इसको कि वो रिचार्ज हो जाए नीचे और वो नीचे नौले में निकले। ये जितने बच्चे हैं, जैसे ये बच्चे के द्वारा पेड़ लगाया गया है, ये जंगल आज तैयार हैं पिछले 30 साल में। बहुत सारे ऐसे 9 जंगल हैं जिनमें आज कम से कम कहीं पर 10,000, कहीं पर 4,000, कहीं पर 8,000 पौधे हैं जो महिला संगठनों के द्वारा तैयार किए गए हैं। ये वो इन्हीं बच्चों के द्वारा, जब ये छोटे थे, आज ये अभी लेटेस्ट फोटो लिया गया, तो ये जो है जब छोटे थे, छोटे सेंटरों में पढ़ते थे संध्या केंद्र में, तब इनके द्वारा ये पेड़ लगाए गए। आज ये जॉब करते हैं, ये लेक्चरर हैं मैथ के, इनके द्वारा ये पेड़ लगाया गया था जब ये बच्चे थे छोटे। तो उनका एक शो किया गया कि बच्चों के द्वारा कैसे तैयार किया गया है। नेक्स्ट, ये नौले जो इस स्थिति में आ गए थे, आज फिर से उनमें पानी आ गया है। फिर से उसकी सफाई करके ये पानी बहता हुआ है यहाँ पर, इनमें से फिर से पानी बहने लगा है, फिर से पानी आ गया है इसके ऊपर। ये वही नौले हैं जो बिल्कुल ड्राई हो गए थे, जिनमें कोई पानी नहीं, टेप से पानी आता था। तो आज की स्थिति में फिर से इन नौलों में ये रिचार्ज हुए हैं और अब इनमें पानी लोग ले जाते हैं, सिर्फ नल पर निर्भर नहीं है। ये वही रिस्कन नदी है, जून, वो भी जून का महीने का था और उसी नदी में आज आपको हल्का पानी दिखाई दे रहा है। धीरे 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 एक लंबे समय के बाद 2012 से 2000, अभी का फोटो है ये पिछले साल का जून का, अब इसमें जो है नदी फिर से हल्की सी बहने लगी है। ये थैंक
Thank you very much for sharing your inspiring story. Now we move forward for our next speaker. We invite Dr. Rajan Kotru, who will speak on importance of sacred landscape and their role in environmental conservation. He brings extensive experience in sustainability. So we welcome Dr. Rajan Kotru.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope speaking English is fine with all of you. Excellent. I feel very humble because having listened to 2 amazing cases so far, it has been really inspiring. Both Yoganathan and now Kanpal, they've been doing amazing work, and I think we can only take inspiration from there. So wonderful. I'll be reporting a little bit about my experience because I've exclusively worked in the Himalayas, which is considered to be a sacred landscape. And you all will agree to that, right from Afghanistan up to Myanmar. If you go 3,500 kilometers, the title I have kept is really very simple: Sacred Landscapes and Conservation. You are seeing a kind of an North Indian map at the top. What you are seeing is the Himalayas, right from northwest, that is J&K, Jammu and Kashmir, right up to Arunachal Pradesh and Manipur, because 7 sisters which we have in the eastern part of India, they all belong to the Himalayas. So I hope to really talk about Himalayas. The contains basically the significance of Himalayas. Let me come to very important information that we have two key global platforms. One is Intergovernmental Platform for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. It's called IPBS. And another one, which is all known to you because my previous speaker was also talking about climate change. And climate change is being looked into by IPCC. You have definitely heard about these IPCC reports, number 4, 5, 6, all of them. All of them and all these reports say that the certain landscapes where people had traditional connect, Tibet is one of them, and whole of the Himalayas is one of them, where over the course of millennia people had developed a very, very sacred relationship with that particular landscape. So that is what is, even IPBS comes to conclusion that wherever that sacredness is still prevailing, the biodiversity conservation is guaranteed. So you can imagine that even research which was done by almost going through 2,750 research papers, and out of that they took 27 papers which were very relevant and came through different statistical analysis that the sacred relationship with the landscape brings you biodiversity conservation. So that is my starting point. I'll talk a little bit about sacredness and few cases where I worked, and I feel somehow blessed, having also worked in Tibet for almost 9 years, especially around Khang Rinpoche, and the future options, which I often talk to Indian government, how the Himalayan development has to go forward. But before I start that, there is a quote in the Andes mountains of South America, and they say, the face of a saint brings miracles. And yesterday, our group had met a saint here, His Holiness, so it has brought miracles. No? For instance, we were watching when the rain is coming, we got the rain, we planted a tree, now we are saying that also water is getting rejuvenated, so all these miracles are needed. And saints have a lot to do with that, or yogis, sometimes we call it. So let's go forward. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is a sacred landscape? We know landscapes, we know desert, we know coastal areas, we know Deccan Plateau, but what is a sacred landscape? UNESCO talks about that where you expect a long and intimate relationship between peoples and the natural environment. This is UNESCO. Or you can say also there, over the course of over the course of development, people have got certain beliefs, and these beliefs become, very much integrated in their daily thinking. If Khang Rinpoche is holy, then it's holy. It's a sacred landscape. There is no two ideas or two thinking about that. So that's what is meant by UNESCO definition, the powerful belief that yes, Khang Rinpoche is center of the universe. 5 religions see it as a center of the universe. So this is the power of a certain landscape, and that's why it's sacred landscape. The other definition comes from World Geography definition, which says, for instance, this holds a significant spiritual, religious, and cultural meaning for a particular group of people. So you go to any part of Tibet, they will certainly see this particular landscape as a holy landscape, and it goes over the course of millennia. And these are normally natural structures. It can be a mountain, it can be a river, it can be a forest, like we see in states of Meghalaya, Uttarakhand. People devote particular forest to the goddess. So suddenly it becomes a sacred landscape. So that's a kind of giving you a background, what is a sacred landscape? Otherwise, now having started, I would say that where the connect of the people come. You may have heard about one of the Indian groups on the American continent. When the white man went to America as a pioneer, and they came to know that Indians are already living there, and they sent a message in 1854. Washington sent a message to chief of Seattle. He was the chief of Indian group, not the we Indians here, but Red Indians and other who were living there. And the message was, we want to buy your land. And this gentleman was very surprised. He said, how can you buy the freshness of air? Or how can you buy the sparkle of water which is gushing through the rivers? So it was very strange to them that how can you buy nature? This was not in their concept. So therefore, he sends a message, we love this earth as a newborn loves its mother's heartbeat. So you can imagine his language. So if we sell you our land, please love it as we have loved it. But I want to just say in conclusion, Chief of Seattle sent a message to Washington saying, sir, this land doesn't belong to us. We belong to land. So that's where this sacredness comes. And it's very, very important to understand this sacredness, which was very much manifested among the Himalayan people. So let's say that way. Now, I take the mountains. Why mountains, Tibettv? You go anywhere, mountains are a natural landscape. So therefore, if you see a dense mountain forest grow, if you go maybe Triund or say Kalatop in Dalhousie, the moment you enter the forest, you feel different. Suddenly you feel connect. You think that I'm going to meditate here, for instance. So that is somewhere, the connect with the nature that immediately falls under sacred landscape. Or the splendor, we call it transcendent beauty, the vast stretch of rangelands in Ladakh, previously called West Tibet, but even in Tibet, if you go to Sikkim, Nepal, Mustang district, all is really those huge rangelands which are there, and if you find a couple of yaks grazing there, suddenly you feel very meditative. So people had a very, very intimate relationship with these rangelands. They thought this is sacred landscape. Sacred power and spiritual attainment. Mount Sinai in Egypt, everybody says it's a holy mountain, it's a sacred landscape. In our case, Kailash landscape or Kangrin Poche as we call it, or Mount Olympus in Greece, or Fuji in Japan, the people over the course of their development had a very special relationship with these, and suddenly they think that this is a sacred landscape. Or, if you are living in a village, suddenly you see the monsoon comes or the winter comes, we just had thunder, lightning. And these ancient people, they really said, oh, this mountain must be something special. So they developed a very strong relationship with these mountains. And I will show you a couple of them later. And therefore, since there is this overwhelming presence of Himalayas, so it is sacred landscape all across. Humanity's highest ideals and aspiration. People want to go there. Later, I will give you a couple of examples how it is manifested in our own culture. So really, I can talk about, and the mountains are seen as warrior gods in several places, even in Andes, even in the ancient Alps. Now Alps look different. And there is this overlay between people, culture, and the religious tradition. So that is where this idea of sacred landscape emerged. And the note below will clearly tell you sacred landscapes such as groves, mountains, river, revered by for spiritual reasons, play a vital role in environmental conservation, embedded within for our protection and cultural and religious practices. So that's where this connect, wherever people have revered the landscapes as sacred, they have also helped towards conservation. So that is what, in a sense, I wanted to convey here. Now we talked about the Himalayas. Why should Himalayas be sacred? The people must have some reason to believe. At that time, say 5,000 years back or 10,000 years back, people did not have, drones flying around and, talking about data and all that. People only saw this big mountain chain full of snow. That's why the name comes Himalaya, the, abode of snow, as we call it. You see a couple of data there. You see 10 rivers were mentioned, for instance. So you can imagine the 4 key rivers which come from Kailash. The local language says elephant, peacock, horse, and lion. You all must be aware of that. The elephant is the Indus, peacock is Karnali River, Brahmaputra is the horse galloping through the landscape of Tibet and finally landing in India. And then finally you have the other fourth Satluj, which is line, which comes into Himachal and then lands up in India. So, and they bring life. Without water, there is no life. And the people have normally settled across these rivers where they have really then created their culture, their tradition. So that's how it really develops. And diverse cultures and languages, religions, traditional knowledge systems. So traditional systems actually came then because we gave this definition of sacredness to these mountains. So traditions developed with particular landscape. Organic farming, natural farming, that was a traditional farming, was actually the sacred relationship between the land and the people. They have not gone to different places prior to this green revolution in India in the early 70s and 80s. Prior to that, the people in the Himalayas have used local resources because there was this relationship. So I'm talking about many services there, but one of the key services is Himalayas are also bio hotspots. There are mega zones of biodiversity in the Himalayas, especially Tibet, along Myanmar, and because several evolution of the vegetation which has happened on this planet have actually connected in the Himalayas, from Indo-Malayan region, then our southern part, and then the whole Siberian part and Central Asian part. So you have a very, very diverse biodiversity. What is biodiversity? Ultimately, it is on that sacred land. And if you have no biodiversity, you have no food, water, and nutrition security. Even if you go to the remotest village of Himalayas, ultimately people are living from local resources, and their food, their nutrition, and their water comes. Mr. Kanpal was talking about those agriculture fields which have inner slope, and then the water percolates, and it comes out in the Naula, we call here a Baudi, and also J&K, we call it Baudi. So that is where the springs, or in Urdu we call Cheshma. So all this is really related to that particular conservation and the sacredness of particular landscape which people had understood. Let's go further. Now, I say it mesmerizing cultural legacy of the Himalayas. Ultimately, when Lakshman in the Ramayana was hurt, Hanuman was sent to where? To the Himalayas. And it was called Oshadi Parvat. And in today's knowledge, they think it was Sikkim landscape, Sikkim and Tibet landscape, where Hanuman got that particular medicinal plant, and he then flew back to where Lakshman, one of the brothers of Lord Rama, where he was then. Why they went? Because we had a very, very special relationship, and Himalayas have been mentioned in Ramayana. We don't know how old is Ramayana, but it is mentioned in Mahabharata. Arjuna, for 1 year, has to go for a penance to Himalayas to get that strong weapon so that he can fight Kauravas. Again, Kalidasa talks about east to west measuring rod, which is, even 5th century before Christ. When Gautam Buddha was also around. So you can imagine how strong was this relationship of especially the Indian continent and Tibet in terms of seeing this landscape as a sacred landscape. I can go further. Fahian came from China to actually learn from this sacred landscape. Hyan Sutang came in 7th century CE. Kumarajiva, actually I was very proud. He actually went from India in the, somewhere in the 4th century and went to China and actually gave them this feeling of why landscapes are very, very sacred. And I have seen even in Langzhou a kind of an ancient monastery which was actually constructed by a Kashmiri monk who went to China in 4th, 5th century. So one becomes also somewhat prestigious and proud that how rich was Himalayas in terms of sacredness and the respect to the landscape. I can go further and I can show you now a couple of pictures. But why was it so? In the modern context, in 2005, we had the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. And the scientists came to conclusion there are 4 types of ecosystem services which you are seeing. They are provisioning, regulatory, cultural services, and the support services. For me, cultural services, I would like to talk a little bit more about that. The spirituality, the recreational energy of a particular place, aesthetics, inspirational and educational value, all this is culture services. People 5,000 years back, 4,000 years back, did not think that way. But since the modern science has come, it has now actually endorsed what people had done 10,000 years back. So this is very important to know. And they also, of course, knew that their water is coming from that particular forest. Their water is coming from local glacier. And their food is coming from local biodiversity. So we get into different, ecosystem services. Support services, they knew exactly which herbs and shrubs are important for as a pollinator. Because if you don't have pollination, you don't get a good apple yield. So things like that are very important. Now let me go further. So this strong interface between ecosystem, Himalayas, sacred landscape, and the people and the society has given a kind of back and forth, and we have a coupled socio-ecological system, which has recognized the spirituality and sacredness of this landscape. Now this is where I worked almost 8-9 years, Kang Rinpoche, and I had to work with Chinese and Tibetan scientists as well as development agents. Why I'm showing this picture is, the moment you see the landscape, there can't be anything else than pride, love, the majesticity of this particular landscape, which is overwhelming. So therefore, the landscape is very sacred. Yeah, and if I go further, this is a landscape in the eastern part of Himachal Pradesh, Rodu. If you go to Rodu, this particular landscape is called Kharshali Temple. If you read it, Durga Mata Mandir Kharshali. What are you seeing there? This is a small pond, dense forest around, and it is mentioned by them, Pandavas, during their Vanvas, when they were taken out from Hastinapur, they stayed here for 1 year. And I can assure you, if you have opportunity, you will find that probably you are again back by 5,000 years back. Such is the landscape. And the local people, they say it's a sacred landscape, we can't do anything there. Small temple, which is already, I don't know how many 100 years, because people have meditated there, people have, gone there for, getting some enlightenment, all this in this small water pond and then river, this particular temple. And you are seeing, I don't know whether I can show, this here. These are 5 Devadar trees, which are also growing in Makalotganj. Cedrus deodara is the scientific name. 5 trees are, they say it is 5 Pandavas. So you can imagine, therefore the people think it's a very special landscape. And what happens is the belief system comes, if I go there and I talk to those universal forces, please help me with this or that, and suddenly this thing happens, that relationship, that belief becomes very, very strong. That's where I seen Tibetan people, when they go around the Kora, which I had to also almost lucky to do it 4 or 5 times, and including the Year of Horse. So there you feel that why it is so, amazing. Now why I'm showing this picture is, more than 1,000 languages in this Himalayan ecosystem. I'm showing these all people because if you see all the religions, Sufism, Kashmiri Shaivism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Jain, Bonpo, all of them are manifested in this particular sacred landscape. And the people have a very, very strong connect. So out of that developed 1,000 living languages in this area. Now, I won't talk much about this particular picture, but what I'm saying is, because that there's a strong relationship between people and the landscape, with the passage of time, our population increased, we needed some more food, we needed some more roads, so there is a very strong, in a way, encroachment or intervention in that particular landscape, whether it's sacred or non-sacred, but we have, in a way, now affected this landscape. So at the end, this landscape our endeavor is always the human well-being. Nobody talks about wildlife in the first instance. We talk about human well-being. So therefore, at the end, we want this human well-being, and that's why we want to really, go ahead with more intervention in that particular landscape. Now, this is a adjusted picture from IPCC report number 4. The big blue, hexagons you see. On one end, you have a human, these are the humans. I'm not saying here. And the environment in a way. Now, I think this is remote has a battery problem. It's making noise already. Doesn't matter. What I want to say quickly is, you have the human system here, and you have environment here. And effects of our decision making, because in the sacred landscape, we have policies, we have governance, we have institutions, and everyday basis, we take decision to intervene in this landscape. So therefore, there's a very strong interface between human and environment. So you have a local environmental knowledge about environment, some capabilities and responses, so that at the end, we have values, wisdom, and I think my voice is good enough. Yeah, okay, fine. So you have this particular picture which actually came from IPCC report, and they recognize that one of the key interventions should be in future, if we want to have climate change resilience building, that we have to think about these biocultural landscapes. Bring that back, that biocultural respect which we had for that particular landscape. Now, why I'm showing this picture again is, you can say land use change. I was just now talking about the land use change, which is happening in this landscape of sacredness. And somewhere you will see that at the end of the day, we have human disconnection from nature. Nobody can deny that. So if this disconnect is happening, we are losing the sacredness. So that's why I wanted to show this picture. Now, this is where I worked during my time in Nepal with Isimod. We had two key landscapes. One was Kanchenjunga landscape, where Sikkim and Nepal have together. And you know that Kanchenjunga is also called 5 treasures of snow. That is the definition. And the local tribes, whether they are Rais and Sherpas, they think this is a holy landscape, and gods are living there. So we did some basic 15 years of work here and said that, okay, we have to revert back to those places which are sacred places. We call them SNS, Sacred Natural Sites. So these are the circles which you are saying. We try to revive these so that people can go back to this culture which they have in a way lost, because we were also ruled by outsiders for almost 250 years, and many of our traditional systems got collapsed due to that. And also much of our reverence for these sacred landscape also got lost because we were overpowered by external forces. So therefore, this work of last 15, 20 years is now very much, and Kanchenjunga landscape is now a UNESCO landscape, so you have to conserve it. It is now a particularly a landscape where the sacredness is very much manifested in the landscape. So luckily I was part of this, and one of the key things which we did, I'll show you later a picture. I'm mentioning this very important, domestic, also wild animals. They are also wild yaks, you must be knowing. And this yak was dying because due to the closure of Tibetan border, there was inbreeding in yak from our side and on the other side also. So therefore, 6-7 years back when I was in Nepal, we created a yak network right from Ladakh, Mongolia, Sikkim, Tibet, so that the gene pool can be circulated and the yak, the new gene pool is much more, crossed and is not really getting inbreeding. So all these experiments are also happening. So we want to go back to those, cultures. Now this is my favorite landscape, Kailash Sacred Landscape, 31,000 square kilometers. And as I said, headwater zone of 4 rivers, which I mentioned already, Indus, Brahmaputra, Satluj, and Karnali River. And this is the map which we prepared, where we have put all the sacred sites in Tibet, as well as Indian part of Uttarakhand, then Nepali part of Dharamshala and the other places, Simikot, where there's a very famous monastery in Simikot. So this map is now very much a trademark. Tibetans across other side are using it. Nepal and also India is using this because we have, in a way, captured the cultural landscape of Kailash landscape, because the part of India and the Kailash landscape is in Uttarakhand. In the Nepal, it's the Sudur Paschim, they call it, far west Nepal. And these are, normal remote sensing pictures. And the sacred landscape, there are several mountains, there are groves, there are caves. I was lucky enough to visit Milarepa's cave, Padmasambhava's cave there, and even Bonpo Guru, who has meditated there. Those caves are all there still, and they are very, very important. Not normal pilgrim doesn't go there. Since I was doing research, I could be allowed by Chinese authorities and Tibetan authorities. So this is where the culture comes in, and these are now some different groups, Tibetan groups. We have these Rang community in Uttarakhand and the Nepal side, and then we have also other groups which are basically the communities. And good news is that only Indian part have been nominated for UNESCO Heritage Site. Unfortunately, I tried 5 years with Chinese government in Beijing and also with Nepalese government. They said we will wait, if it's a UNESCO landscape, the Kailash landscape, then probably the use is restricted and all that. But India was first to then collect the data and submit it to UNESCO in Paris. So the work is going on. And a couple of good knowledge products which have come, which, we worked on these shared sacred landscapes, folk boards. One of the key authors of India, Kamala Kapoor, we hired her. And these two books I will today give to this library. These are with me. And one of the frameworks which I created with other, authors, this is on the right-hand side, Framework for Assessment of Cultural Ecosystem Services. This was my work when I was at Isimot. So you will also see here the map. What you see here is dots. These are all sacred sites, natural sites. And I had a PhD from Lhasa who went across the Kora route, and we found out across the Kora route, 53 kilometers, there are 55 sacred places. And it was all then mapped. And actually the Tibetan government from the other side has in their tourism plan, now these sites are there. But we really fought with them that it should be only ecotourism, otherwise you will spoil this landscape. I wanted to also say that during my time there, I would really like to highlight this. I was very much vocal and very forceful to Chinese authority that this 53-kilometer route should be cleaned of rubbish, which all the pilgrims, including Chinese, are throwing there. It should be removed. And it was removed within 2 months. And now every day a lorry goes to the highest pass, brings this all junk down, and it is sent for, it's segregated and then sent for, treatment. Similarly, also, we also negotiated with Chinese authorities, the whole Mansaro Lake should be closed to local people. Only a place where people want to have a bath. Buddhists actually don't take a bath, but Hindus think their sins are washed away, so they take a bath. So I said, no, they should be only at one place. They can't be going wherever they want because it's a very important lake. Now, this is what we do, Yak Festival. That is where we bring all, other, this was in Sikkim, which we did in Kanchenjunga landscape. And the idea was to get focus back to Yak, because we were losing that connect with that sacred landscape. We said that Yak is the animal where people will get, always connected. So that is what we did. Transboundary cooperation, people-to-people networking, significance of yak herding, all this was then, done. Tourism festival, when I say tourism, I am only talking about ecotourism. That we should not lose our sacredness, we should not lose our local culture. So that is a dialogue happening with these big, Airbnbs and all that, which we bring from, normally from these 4 countries, 5 countries. This is in Taiwan, again. What I'm saying is this is this Shan, in a way, province somewhere in Taiwan. Why I'm showing this? That sometimes in the natural landscape, you can also emulate and create artificial landscapes. That's what Taiwan has done. They have a botanical garden, which is the right-hand side picture down under, the right one, where they have declared this is a kind of a sacred landscape, but artificially created because it's a botanical garden, so that's how it works. Now, sacred landscapes and pressures. There are a lot of pressures, you will agree. Shifts in traditional practices because our behavioral shift has happened. We are not same human beings as 100 years back. We are much more materialistic. We are much more consumerist. So that would mean we are also changing our behavior towards a much more, materialistic lifestyle. That means our traditional systems are collapsing. Increase external development and accessibility. You will agree that giving roads, airports, now people are, anytime, somebody sitting in Delhi or so, or even in Chennai would say, okay, I want to go to Manali, so fine. They fly in, take a taxi, and then go around. So that means you have to create more roads. And we have the data now. How many roads have spoiled our springs? The traditional springs. We have lost so far almost, we say, thumb rule, Himalayas has more than 4 million springs. More than 4 million. And out of that, 1/3 to 50% are drying up or have gone. So you can imagine what it means. This is the external influence, because also local people are now manifested with external people who have a different culture, who probably don't show that much respect to Himalayas as we would do while living here. So that is the idea. Commercialization, it's all about business. So therefore, it's all about economy and economic paradigms. They, declare your budget, your investments, your interventions in the landscape. You don't look into, even if you have policies and acts and all that. Governance issues, because there's a top-down strategy, programs, planning, and environmental changes, which is, of course, also climate change. This is one more thing which we are doing currently in Sikkim, Uttarakhand, and Himachal, where we are capturing traditional agroecological practices, right from Ladakh up to Sikkim, and trying to see that this traditional crop is coming back to our sacred landscape. And we are branding it and then marketing it at higher prices. So again, this is my formula for where we should go. This is probably the last slide. Lobsang is waiting for that. So I think, I'm giving this, I call it Panch Tattva, the 5 elements of this universe. I call Himalayas are in a way akin to Shrishti. Shrishti is the universe was created. Okay, so it's a gift to human beings that Himalayas are existing. So therefore, these are landscapes, ecosystem services, where we are planning programs and all that. But this Prakriti or Shrishti has given us Sanskriti, our culture. And culture, our spiritual wisdom, our religious, know-how, socio-cultural part of it, mixing traditional system with modernity, that's where we have to go. Samriddhi, prosperity, if you are addressing Prakriti and Sanskriti, you get Samriddhi, prosperity. If you respect nature, the nature will give you prosperity. And if you go further, from the Indian context, it is also giving us Suraksha. If Himalayas are safe at the border, I am not saying that we have tanks and aeroplanes on the border. I'm saying if water security is there, if food security is there, our people will stay at the border. Otherwise, they will move to Ambala, they will move to Shimla, they will move to Dalhousie, and the borders are empty. That means your defense is not taken care. And I'm raising alarm in Delhi also with this, that Suraksha is dependent whether our ecosystems are happy there at the top. And if you have all these four, you have Sthirta, stability. That means you have very stable government, you have a stable ecosystem, and you can plan ahead and counter climate change, counter your food requirements, SDGs 1 to 17, and we can have nature-based solutions which are already there, but we need to really add value to that. And constant awareness and mass communication. And I think with that, I thank you very much. I took longer, but I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for highlighting the cultural values and sacred landscape. Now, I invite Dr. Lobsang Yangsto for presenting on Tibetan environmental activism and advocacy effort in exile. I invite her to share her insights.
Thank you, Hema. Thank you so much. So I would like to straight away go for my presentation where this is a story of courage, and this is a story of Tibetan environment defenders in Tibet and also in exile as well. And I would be focusing on that. So the structure of my presentation, as I said earlier, I would be talking about the environment defenders in Tibet, their activism from individual perspective, community-led conservations, and also the various protests that has happened in Tibet, and then focusing in exile about the environment advocacy. And so I would focus on the efforts by the CTA, Tibetan government in exile, and also efforts by the Tibetan NGOs and Tibet support groups, where there are also many scholars and individuals' effort in advocacy, but due to the limited time, I would not focus on that. So before we talk about the environment advocacy in Tibet, I would like to focus on the environment activism inside Tibet. And with that, it is very important that we understand the environment crisis in Tibet. In the morning, Kongo La has already mentioned about the major environment issues that we face. But one very huge concerning issue is the rapid mining that is ongoing inside Tibet, and the rapid deforestation that happened in early 90s. And then the glacier melting, and because of the temperature rising, so glacier melting is another huge environment problem that we face in Tibet. And finally, the forced displacement of the Tibetan nomads. And right now, because of the climate change, China has been seen as the global climate leader. And because of that, solar power installation is a major issue that has also led to forced displacement of Tibetans as well. So while focusing on the brave activism of Tibetans inside Tibet, we have to understand that in Tibet, the surveillance is very massive, and there is information monitored as well. However, Tibetans in Tibet have found the courage and also sacrifice of their life, and many of the Tibetans have sacrificed by protecting the Tibet's environment as well. And so one environment activism that we see is the individual environmental activism in Tibet. So we all know about the case of the Kama Samdrup, who has been jailed for 15 years by protecting the Tibet's land, and he has been released recently. And Anyan Sendra has been also one of the leading Tibetan environmentalists. He has been jailed for 7 years for protecting the land. And then the latest is Tsongen Siring. He's a very young Tibetan who has exposed the Chinese sand mining through the social media, and he has been jailed for more than 8 months, and he has been released as well. So, but this is the case of only 3 activists, but there are many Tibetans individuals, environmental defenders in Tibet, which we know and which we don't know as well because of due to the restrictions of information, many of the cases are unable to, come out in India or outside Tibet. So another environment conservation that we talk about is the community-led conservation. And in Tibet, and also in the history of Tibet, Tibetan Buddhism and Pön has really influenced the work of environment conservation. And because of that as well, right now in Tibet, Tibetan monasteries have and religious leaders have a huge influence on the conservation work. And with the limited political space, Tibetans have found ways in terms of protecting the land by doing waste management, by doing tree planting, and also creating educational books to the young Tibetans as well. However, we have to also understand that in Tibet, the space is very limited, and sometimes, the Chinese government consider environment conservation as a very political or sensitive. So in any time, you could be labeled as a separatist or you could be labeled anti-government. So there is always a threat of, politics. One important example is the Zatoi County. Because of the Tibetan community conservation, the community has, protested mining. And because of that, the land has been designated as a national protected natural area in Tibet. So the resistance, in some way, because of the Tibetan people's courage, there is some sort of success, but it also requires lots of courage and sacrifice as well. Another, the point that very important is about the environmental protest that's happened in Tibet. So I have collected the data from 2010 to 2025, where the major protests specifically related to environment. And in that data, the anti-mining protest has been the most prominent protest against the Chinese government as well. And also when we look at the location, the protest has happened to all three provinces of Tibet, Kham, Amdo, and Uzang as well. And the latest has been the recent anti-gold mining protest that has happened in Sikyong County. With the case of the Dege Dam protest that happened in February 2025, the kind of restrictions and the surveillance and also threatening the families and complete cut off information blackout is the situation that we have seen. And with the time, there has been more repressive that we see in Tibet as well. I always get emotional when I talk about self-immolation. So since 2009, almost more than 150 Tibetans inside Tibet have self-immolated, calling for the return of His Holiness Dalai Lama to Tibet, and also for the freedom and rights of the Tibetan people as well. And environment has been also concerned of the some of the Tibetans who have self-immolated. And here is the quote of young Tibetan Sonam Topgel, who self-immolated himself in 2015, and he has left a letter. And in that letter, he says that Chinese authorities repress with their violent and brutal law by demolishing our religion, tradition, culture, and causing environment devastation. Meanwhile, people absolutely have no freedom of expression, nor can they convey their grievances. So this is the letter left by a young Tibetan, Sonam Topge, in 2015 as well. So what is the current situation inside Tibet? As I said earlier, the surveillance has increased. The control of the information inflow or outflow is also increased as well. activists are often labeled as separatists or anti-government for protecting their land as well. And because of the heavy restriction of monitored information and, sometimes in many of the Tibetan village, some of the, Tibetans are also paid a little amount of money just to become an informer for the government. So which is something that, I have heard or experienced, and this has also created a huge pressure or a situation, very harsh situation among the people where there is a threat or danger of losing trust among the same community or same village as well. However, with this restrictions, but still in Tibet we see the resistance continues, and often with so much of strategically. And in that whole movement, I have not included the works of Tibetan artists, singers, filmmakers who have also raised the environment issue as well. So now going back to the, with the case of Tibet environment in Tibet, now going back to, in exile, the efforts in exile. As Tempala has mentioned, I will not, focus much on that, about His Holiness' work on environment conservation, his influence on the global and also within the Tibetan community as well. And so it was in 1992 where the first UN climate change environment and development conference happened in Rio, and so during that time, the international media has really started paying attention on the works of Tibet, and also His Holiness the Dalai Lama as well. So being a Tibetan in exile, being a refugee, so you have also a responsibility of working for the country of your own origin, and then you have also responsibility of protecting the environment or doing conservation work that you are residing right now. So thus, I think many of the Tibetans, Lama and also the civil societies have taken conservation initiatives in India and also at the Himalaya region as well. One is the Kyishong Rinpoche, whose work that we have known. He has established Go Green, Go Organic organization in Ladakh as well. Gyawakama Rinpoche has also established Kuryuk in 2009, where he has discussed, and the initiative has spread across the monasteries in Nepal and India as well. And then Tibetan civil societies in India, in Dharamshala specifically, annually there has been some initiative as well. But then going back again to the advocacy effort that we talk about. So with the advocacy effort, as I said earlier, my focus is on this, the initiatives of CTA and the Tibetan NGOs and Tibet support groups. So what we do in terms of international lobbying, campaigning, and then research and reports, and then reach out to the media, and then coalition building with other international organizations, and then in terms of educating the young Tibetans as well. So when we look at the international lobbying, we have been reaching out to the UN special rapporteurs, submitting reports to the to the UN sessions as well, and Human Rights Council, and recently CTA has organized special site events at the UN Human Rights Council as well. And with the governments, there has been diplomatic briefings, embassy briefings, and foreign ministry briefings as well. And so we also have allied countries, mostly from the West. And from, I think from my experience, with the experience of UPR, the latest UPR from Asia, I think that Japan has been very supportive and very outspoken of Tibet as well. And then with the action of the parliamentary actions, many of the countries have set up parliamentary Tibet support groups. And here in India, the Tibetan civil society and our government, do lobby the parliaments as well. And with the example of Tibetan civil society, 5 Tibetan NGOs from Dharamshala has set up a Tibet Advocacy Alliance India, where with the 3 advocacy weeks or lobbies, we have met almost 100 Indian members of parliament, and environment has been one of the major issues, issues that we raised to the Indian members of parliament. So at the international level, it is also important about the Tibet's participation at the global climate change conferences, where it is very significant to represent Tibet and be the voice of your own story. And so since 2009, Tibetan government and also the civil societies have brought the issue of Tibet's climate in the global climate discussions as well. And so with this, from 2009 to 2014, many of the Tibet groups, almost more than 10 Tibet groups have participated in the UN climate change conference, whereas the TPI has been the major consistent, who could participate it, and I would really like to acknowledge and appreciate the dedication and hard work as well. And in 2001 and 2022, we have seen the maximum participation of Tibet groups, and this is really important because I think bringing Tibet at the international platform and being the voice and being the representative of your own nation is extremely critical. And then with Exile, research and documentation is another major initiative which also helps in advocacy. And so here are the few examples of the reports that we have seen. And these reports have helped in the government briefings and also in the lobbying as well. And with these reports, we get information and scholars who do research on that. And with the information coming out from Tibet, so we have built many reports that has helped in our advocacy as well. So with this all work, so what has been the achievement? I would like to just highlight 2 achievements that we have seen. One is in the UN special communication, or that has been specifically on the Tibetan environment defenders, and they were asking about the 9 cases of Tibetan environment defenders to the Chinese government. And then the recent UN special rapporteur's report or communication has been on Tsongyön Tsering on 2025 as well. So why are this important? It is important because it remains in the international record, and it proves that Tibetans who have sacrificed their lives in Tibet is not forgotten. And China, trying to be a global leader, really cares about its international image and its international reputation as well. And we Tibetans consistently engaging with the UN mechanisms, questions the Chinese government and asking the accountability, and that really I feel that hurts Chinese image as well. So thus, I think engaging consistently with the UN is extremely important for our work. So with the outside work, the Tibet's advocacy, and also from the Tibetans inside Tibet's work on environment. So how do we bridge the whole movement? What is the connecting the phase is that one is the shared vision, where both the Tibetans inside and outside have a shared vision of protecting the land and then being the voice of our own. And then also, though in Tibet, because of the heavy repression, the Tibetans do lots of conservation work as well. And we, being in exile, having lots of freedom, and also the kind of the spaces that we get. So it is our responsibility to amplify the voices of Tibetans in Tibet as well. And in exile, it is extremely also important to have a coordinated, strategic coordination among the, the Tibet groups and the, CTA and the Tibet support groups to bring the whole issue at the international level as well. So with that, so what are the current challenges that we face when we talk about environment, conservation? So in Tibet, as I mentioned earlier, intensifying repression is another challenge. Then, the environment destruction is continuously, going inside Tibet. Rapid mining, rapid dam construction, almost, I think, more than 150, dams have been planned or, dams will be constructed in future on the rivers of Tibet by the Chinese government as well. And information warfare, where there are also many possibility of many protests that has been not be reported because of the limited, information and restrictions on the Tibetans inside and outside as well. So what are the challenges that we face in exile? Resources constraint, I think that has been very prevalent in the CTA and also with the Tibet groups as well. Funding has been a major challenge with the work in terms of doing advocacy and research. And with the Tibet groups, we have a very small team competing the, international attention. And then, geopolitical realities where many of the Tibet's downstream nations, where the major rivers flow, Brahmaputra, Mekong, Salween River, almost like 10 or 9 major countries who are the, the downstream nations of Tibet. Because of the Chinese influence, they are very hesitant to raise Tibet in the global platform, which is another challenge that we see. And then in the exile, verification difficulties, whenever we received information inside from Tibet, it is very difficult to verify the information, whereas many of the international media, asked for the verification, and due to the limited, resources and restrictions, so this is another challenge. And then transnational repression. Many of the Tibetans who are here in exile and who have parents in Tibet, families in Tibet, and because of the transnational repression, many of them are unable to raise or the issue of Tibet in the even though you are in exile as well, because your families are constantly monitored and visited by the local Chinese police as well. And then another challenge that we see is the systemic issue. That is that at the UN, even though we appeal to the UN Human Rights Councils or the other mechanisms as well, there is a lack of accountability or mechanisms that can, make China accountable of what is happening inside Tibet. So even though the UN mechanisms, they sent out reports or communication, they don't have a enforcement capacity or power to make China accountable. So that is another challenge that we see. And even at the global climate, negotiations, the water resources has not been considered has not received significant attention. The indigenous knowledge and the local people's knowledge or participation, human rights, these are the major issues that is related to us with the Tibet issue, but at the international global climate discussion, much of these issues have not been given much preference when it comes in the global climate negotiation as well. And with this right now, in this world, so much of global crisis is happening. So we are competing with those issues, and thus to get consistent media attention or public attention is another challenge that we see. So finally, so what is the road ahead? So where do we go from here? I think it's also important to strengthening, building international coalition and solidarity is one important. And then investing on the younger generations, youths, on climate advocates, and providing them capacities, trainings is another very important that I think we have to focus, and then pressuring the governments and the corporates. And with my experience, in Asia, I feel that there is some scope to be able to engage with the civil societies and communities. So when I had opportunity to visit, or do a field visit in Mekong and Salween region, we have met, many environment defenders or water defenders from these regions, and many of them have not heard the story of Tibet, or many of them have not met any Tibetans. So I felt that there is some scope that we can build alliance with them, and we can also share stories and share stories of Tibetans in Tibet, where they are protecting the land, protecting the river that is also flowing in their countries as well. And then to conclude, I would say that Tibet's environment issue is not only about Tibet. It is about the more than 1 billion Asian population. So thus it needs international attention and government's attention on Tibet, and see what are the Chinese government and how does it impact their people as well. Inside Tibet, people are courageous individuals, communities. They are continue to defend the Tibet's environment, and in exile we have coordinated campaign and advocacy efforts from different groups, from the government side, from the civil society side as well, and we try to bring the voice at the global level. And finally, I think our struggle is very long. To be honest, the challenge is real, but we have to be very consistent, and I personally always believe that we have a hope, and our fight is just, so our movement has to continue. Thank you so much for your attention.
I thank Dr. Lobsang for sharing her experience. Now, we came to end of this session. Because of time restriction, we can't have Q&A session. So I thank all our speakers for sharing their valuable experience and perspective. I thank the audience for patience listening. And I also acknowledge the organizers for bringing together such meaningful discussion. Thank you, everyone.
I will now proceed to the closing session. I would like to invite Tempa Gangchen Zamla, Deputy Director of the Tibet Policy Institute, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Please give me just 5 minutes, it will be done. I'm sorry, we apologize that we are way beyond time. It's almost 5:30. And also apologies to the panelists that there were a lot of questions, but shortage of time, we are not able to do that. But we are very happy that there have been very, very beautiful stories that have been shared. And I could see on faces of others that there has been a lot of inspirations. And many of you, it's way beyond 5. Normally 5 p.m. is the last time you'll be here. But because you are staying back means that there has been inspirations, there has been engagement. So thank you very much. Now, as the Deputy Director of Tibet Policy Institute, please allow me to say a few words. First of all, I want to thank Marimuthu Yogananda ji for coming all the way from Coimbatore, from Tamil Nadu. Be here, the tree man of India, no ordinary personality. And I would also like to thank Mohan Chandra Kantpal ji coming all the way from Uttarakhand. And then I want to thank Dr. Rajan Kutra ji. I want to thank Dr. Lobsang Yungsola. Now I want to say something about Marimuthu ji. They were supposed to take flight from Delhi at 9:30, but suddenly, for no reasons given, the flight got cancelled. And Marimuthu ji and his wife and Kimaya, they had to stay whole night at Delhi airport. So they took a flight, they had to delayed again from Coimbatore. They were in Delhi, stayed the whole night in the airport, took another flight in the morning to get here. So that shows dedication towards environment conservation. And Mohanji again, it's the similar story. Mohanji's flight also got cancelled, it's the same flight. the Mohan and Himaji, they took a train, a car from their home in Almora to somewhere in Dehradun. Then from there, they took a train to Delhi. Because flight got cancelled, they were reaching in Delhi around 4:30 in the morning. So they were not able to catch the next flight. So they again took a train all the way from Delhi to Amb, and then from there they took a taxi. So this again shows the dedication without any complaint or grumbling. So they are here. And Rajanji, he has been driving yesterday and today with his wife, coming here and going back. Thank you very much. And Lobsang Sola, it's a similar story. She's on her little scooter, coming and going. So these are some of the indications that there's this passion, there's a dedication in them. Thank you very much. And then I want to thank our director, Kong Kamachunila, for that powerful keynote address. Kong Kamachunila's leadership helps us to move forward with such organizing such conferences. I want to thank Kimaya Mohan for making that, I think someone said earlier, making that very clear and concise translation, because Marimutuji's wonderful story should not be lost in a bad translation. But we are happy that the translation has been more than accurate. Thank you very much. And Hima Kantapal here, thank you very much for being the moderator. I know to be a moderator to a very, very passionate environmentalist, it's very difficult to contain going beyond their time, but the beautiful stories all have needs to be heard. So thank you very much, Himaji, for being the moderator here. And then, of course, I want to thank my own colleague, Dechen Pamola, being the moderator of the first session, making the first session run smoothly. Then I want to thank my own colleague, Tundu Wamola, the captain of the day, in a way, being a master of ceremony. Thank you very much. And of course, I want to thank Walamati Yoganandaji. Without her, Marimutuji won't be able to come all the way here. So every man needs a good wife. So that's why she is here. And I also want to thank Anita Kotru, who's also accompanied Rajanji in his car. Thank you very much. Now, most importantly, I want to thank Khoten Organizing Committee, specifically Kongo Siri Tundula and Namje Chamala, for giving us Tibettv Policy Institute this opportunity. It came with a very short notice though, but that's order. This is an opportunity because we have organized many conferences, panel discussions, and events this year to celebrate His Holiness' 90th birthday. But this is very special. This is very special because this is specifically focused on His Holiness' environment conservation efforts and commitment. And so thank you very much for this opportunity. And we made a lot of effort. We made enormous effort because whoever we bring needs to reflect the passion, the compassion, or the commitment that His Holiness had. I'm happy that we brought some of the best people that are out there doing grassroots environment conservation. And of course, we want to thank Tibettv, whose continuous support has been one of the big stories of our success, because through Tibettv, not only the audience here, but also others around the globe watch us, listens, hear our story. And all the stories that we share today here will go beyond this hall to the global community and global audience as well. Then I want to thank my TPI, Tibet Policy Institute colleagues. Nothing runs smooth without teamwork. So you see smooth running of the presentation here, the MC, the moderating, the tea being served around, a lot of movements at every panel discussion, there's movement to chair. All this is done with teamwork. So thank you very much to my team. And finally, and most importantly, there's no conference or panel discussion without audience. And I was really, really fearful that the moment it comes at 5 p.m., people would just move off. But I'm really happy it's already 5:30 and you are still here. So thank you very, very much for being here. Thank you very much to every one of you. And please give 2 more minutes. We have some presentation to others.
Thank you, Temple, for the word of thanks. We will now proceed with the presentation of Kata. I would like to invite the director of the Tibet Policy Institute, Mr. Kamachung, to kindly present Kata to our esteemed panelists as a gesture of appreciation. I will now call the names one by one and invite each panelist to come forward to receive the Kata. First, Marumuthu Yoganandan. Second, Kimaya Mohan. Third, Hima Kanpal. And fourth, Mohan Chandra Kanpal. And fifth, Dr. Rajan Gutra. And Dr. Lobsang Yangso. Thank you, Kong Kamachungla and Tema Gyamzela. Can you please give me a 2 seconds? I will give it very short. So, as we are heading towards the closing session, it's my honor of the 90th birth anniversary year of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. I want to express my sincere gratitude to our panelists and to all the colleagues for your presence and engagement. Today's insight from the practitioners working at the grassroots level remind us that environmental protection begins with compassion and mindful action. I hope this session has inspired each of us to reflect on our own role in caring for the environment. With that, we officially close today's discussion. And thank you all once again for attending and for your kind attention. Thank you so much.